Hello and welcome to the Real World. Thank you so much for joining us today on the Real World podcast, a very special episode. We are joined by a very special guest today as we discuss this topic that we've actually covered before, defending bad movies, bad in quotations, movies that we enjoy that a lot of other people don't for whatever reason. So this is part 2 of the Defending Bad Movies podcast. I'm joined again by my co-host Bert. How you doing, man?
Hey, how's it going, Cam? And who else we got here?
Yeah, we have a very special guest, as I mentioned before. This is Josh. How you doing, Josh?
Good. How are you guys?
Doing well.
Great.
Thanks so much for joining us. We are really
Glad
excited
to
to
be
have
here.
Josh on the podcast. It's been a long time coming, and so excited to get his input and some of his favorite bad movies. This is a perfect one to join in on, and so we're excited to have him with us. Thank you so much. Be sure you hit that like button, hit the subscribe button down below, hit the bell to get notifications of all our videos here at The Real World. Let's kick things off with some movie news. All right, so we're kicking everything off today, as we usually do, with some movie news that dropped this past week. The first thing we wanted to talk about is The Mandalorian. The new trailer for the 3rd season of this highly popular Star Wars series is now out. It was released during Monday Night Football, and watched it live. It was something to behold. As a Star Wars fan, I'm ecstatic. I'm obviously representing Mando and baby Grogu down there today because I'm very excited about this 3rd season. This is probably my favorite Star Wars thing that they've done recently. It is excellent. Every episode, I'm on the edge of my seat. Can't wait to see what's going to happen next. And so very, very high production values, great acting, great writing, action sequences, special effects. They just went all out with this series. And this kind of kicked off Disney Plus when that was first launched and that whole thing. So season 3 is coming in March. March 1st is our release date. Very excited by what I saw here. Now, I know we've got a lot of different Star Wars opinions and fandoms here. Josh and I are pretty heavy into Star Wars. It's kind of like our thing. Bert, you're more of a Trekkie. So you're kind of the outlier here. Do you want to give your thoughts first on this trailer? Did you watch it?
Yeah, I think it's something I need to tee up real soon because I did watch the trailer. It looks really good. I mean, I am a very casual kind of fan. I criticize Star Wars a lot, but on the other hand, I'm kind of a defender of the first, like, episode 1, 2, 3.
Right.
Not about everything in those movies, but you know what I mean? So, but yeah, I think it looks really good. I mean, I definitely need to, everybody I've heard from says the same thing about it. So yeah, it's just a matter of time before I kick off season 1 and start watching it.
Awesome. Yeah, that'd be great. That'd be great. Josh, got to get your thoughts. What do you think?
First of all, I think it's an amazing trailer. I'm ecstatic for the season. Just from where we left off, I don't know where we seem to be going. Coruscant, like, I don't know. I guess it's a trailer, so we can say whatever we want.
Yeah. Spoil it away.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, what I'm most excited for is what, like you said, possibly Grogu's origins.
Yeah.
With that Jedi scene, like,
Right.
Is that Vader coming through the door? It's probably Vader coming through the door, which means we're gonna get some lightsaber fights.
Right.
It's gonna be cool.
Yeah,
I'm really
definitely
excited for it. Mandalore.
Yeah, me too.
Mandalore. We're going to the ruins of Mandalore. The ruins of anything are really cool, as I'll talk about later. But yeah, the ruins of Mandalore. Super excited for that.
Yeah. We haven't been to Mandalore yet in the show The Mandalorian because they're kind of spread throughout the galaxy. All the Mandalorians have, kind of lost their home world, and now we're going back. And the first time we've seen this planet in live action, which is cool. We've seen it in animation before, but we haven't seen it in the live action format. So yeah, armies of Mandalorians. I mean, all kinds of big stuff they're going for here. The whole thing that Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau have done, with these new series, they're involved with they're involved with the Ahsoka show, which is coming up. Skeleton Crew is another one that's coming out soon. And all these kind of take place during the same time era, post episode 6, post Return of the Jedi. And so they're in between episode 6 and 7, that 30-year period there. And there's been a lot of speculation that they're all going to cross over in some big event, which some think might be a new adaptation of Heir to the Empire, which is the big, book series that came out after the original trilogy. A lot of fans are kind of crazy about that. Admiral Thrawn and that whole storyline. So it could end up being their own adaptation of that story, which would be really cool. I think
That'd be so cool.
Yeah, it would be neat. So we'll just have to wait and see. Again, March 1st, that's coming out. They did announce the director's list. We've got Bryce Dallas Howard coming back, which is great. She's directed episodes in season 1 and 2, some of my favorite episodes. Daughter of Ron Howard, of course. Bert, big fan of him. She's coming back. Rick Famuyiwa is coming back. Carl Weathers, who stars in the show as Grief Karga, he's going to direct another episode. He directed his first episode last season. He did a great job. So he's coming back. New director Rachel Morrison, who was the director of photography on Black Panther. Oh. She's going to direct her own episode, which is exciting. And then Lee Isaac Chung, who directed that movie Minari, that came out about a year or so ago. He's going to direct an episode. And then a director of Into the Spider-Verse, Peter Ramsey, is directing one of the episodes as well. That's pretty exciting. Have an animation director come into live action is always interesting to see what they do. Great director lineup, great talent behind the camera. This trailer broke the record for most viewed trailer in 24 hours from a Star Wars project, with 83.5 million views in only 24 hours. It broke the record from Kenobi. Kenobi had 58 million. So this far exceeded even that. So obviously fan fervor is high for this series. It's just kind of grown in popularity as it's been on. The consistency's been there. The quality, I think that's really why, because the quality's been there. So yeah, I'm really excited. The show is loosely inspired. Just if you haven't heard of this, it's Lone Wolf and Cub. It's very loosely inspired by this old Japanese manga-based samurai film series. There's 6 movies here. This is the Criterion box that I have. And so if you're a fan of Mandalorian or you're not sure about it, check this out. It's kind of, you'll get the gist of it, basically. The kind of idea behind it, a samurai with protecting a little baby, and that whole thing. So check it out. Also check out Clone Wars. If you haven't, great series streaming right now on Disney Plus. Rebels, this is going to tie heavily into the new seasons of Mandalorian, I'm sure. So yeah, that's some stuff you can check out before March 1st. That's our first episode on Disney Plus. All right, so now we're going to move on to the next trailer that dropped recently. This was for a movie called True Spirit. Josh, you sent this over to me, and I appreciate it because this looks really good. This is a true story about the youngest person to travel the globe in a sailboat, which is a pretty incredible feat. So I'm a big fan of, nautical adventure films. This reminded me a little bit of All Is Lost. Robert Redford. I like that movie a lot.
Me too. Yeah.
Of course, you always think of Castaway when you think of survival movies as well. So a little bit of that vibe in there. It's coming to Netflix January 26th. So very soon we'll be able to watch this one. What did you guys think of the trailer? Bert, what was your take?
I think I liked the trailer, and I think it's great to bring that story to life because I try to point out when the hero of the story is a woman, because too often it's always a man, and so it's nice to have that sort of against what you typically see, and so it looks like a great adventure story to check out.
Yeah, definitely. Josh, what was your take on this?
I'm excited for it. There was her and another guy have both sailed around the world, and I remember when those things were happening, and I don't know, it's just gonna be cool to see this movie honoring her as she did it. I don't know. I mean, it's just an amazing feat in and of itself. So I'm excited to see how we go through it. And it looks like it's got a really good heart to the film as well.
All right. Next story we wanted to talk about was Tron. So I'm a pretty big fan of this franchise. I've got both of the Tron films here on Blu-ray. Big fan of both. And pretty groundbreaking technology. The original first computer generated effects in a film, and the third film has been long in development. Joseph Kosinski, who directed Tron Legacy, went on to do Top Gun Maverick, and he's been busy doing Tom Cruise craziness. So unfortunately, he doesn't look like he's returning. It looks like they've got a director named Joachim Roning, who directed Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Men Tell No Tales, which was the 5th and final Pirates film. He also directed a good movie called Kon-Tiki, I don't know if you guys have heard of that. It's based on a true story. It's a survival film. It's really well done. That's how he got the job for Pirates. But he's going to step into the director's chair, and we have Jared Leto set to star as a new character named Ares. And that's the working title, is Tron Ares. So I'm curious about it. The talent doesn't get me super excited. I like Leto as an actor. I think he's pretty good. The director, he's got a hit and a miss in my book. So, I'm not sure how it's going to all turn out. But they're set to start shooting in August. So this is going to be fast tracked. It looks like they've got a script in place and they're happy with it. So we'll have to see what becomes of this. But Josh, you're a pretty big Tron fan, right?
Well, I haven't seen the original.
Oh, okay.
And I thought the second one, Tron Legacy, was good, not great.
Okay.
Certain aspects like the visuals and the music, etc., were really good.
Yeah.
But I liked the show on Disney XD. I thought that was really good.
Oh, yeah. I saw a couple episodes of that. Yeah, Uprising. Yep.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. So I don't know, just Tron's cool in and of itself. So
Right.
I'm really excited to see where they go here. I like Jared Leto. I think he's a really good actor. He's an interesting character, but he's a really good actor. And I totally agree with you. Fifth Pirates movie was a miss mostly. And so that doesn't excite me. I'm kind of like a little worried about that,
Yeah.
but hopefully it's good.
Yes, me too. Bert, what are your thoughts on the Tron franchise?
I've got the Legacy one. You held up it looks, my background will let me hold it
Yeah.
up, but it's very similar to what you have, but it's got that lenticular cover. It's the 3D version.
Nice.
And the 2D as well. So yeah, I like Legacy quite a bit. I do like the original. But if I'm going to put one in, it's probably going to be Legacy.
Sure.
And I saw it in the theater. It was terrific in the theater. It just that last act is pretty lackluster compared to how it builds up, and it's really exciting, and the music and the action is really, really cool, take in. I guess my question is, like, I think a third one coming sounds great, but I would really want Daft Punk to be back doing the music, because this is a soundtrack that I've gone to over and over. I mean, it's fun to listen to just in general, but like a lot of the tracks are on my running playlist. So bring on more of that if they will, but I don't know if they will.
Yeah, I hope so too. That was definitely a major highlight, I think, for everyone for that Tron Legacy film. That score was just so different, and Daft Punk did a great job. They got a little cameo in the movie too, which is fun. So right. So I don't know. We'll just have to wait and see what they end up doing with it. Legacy set up something really cool, which was, the character Cora, played by Olivia Wilde, comes into the real world from the grid.
Yeah.
So,
that'd be cool to see.
Yeah, that would be interesting to see that, all that stuff coming into our world and how that would work. And so it's set up for greatness. We're just going to have to wait and see if they're able to pull it off. Okay, last bit of movie news we wanted to discuss was this new teaser Netflix put out for all of their 2023 movies. So all these big movies that are coming out, Netflix released a little snippet of each movie. You had to kind of pause it to check out, a couple of quick clips from some of the ones that we're excited about. I'll just kind of run down each one. The first one that we see is from a movie called You People, coming out January 27th. This is a comedy with Eddie Murphy and Jonah Hill. Looks funny. I like Eddie Murphy. I'm curious about it. Although,
you like Jonah Hill, that's the question. He doesn't have the best reputation in real life.
That's true.
In his dealings with people, but I don't know if that's true. But
yeah, I don't either. One thing that I was kind of surprised by that we didn't get in this teaser was Beverly Hills Cop. Where was the fourth Beverly? Isn't that coming to Netflix sometime this year?
Right.
That's
I
what
thought
I heard.
That was a Netflix one. Yeah, it was slated to come out in summer. Yeah. Apparently it got bumped.
Didn't get any footage there. I don't know if they're still editing. They don't have any footage ready. I don't know. I'm not sure what happened. I was just surprised we didn't see anything from it. So
none of the CGI is done. So
right. All right. Next up was Your Place or Mine. This is a romantic comedy starring Ashton Kutcher and Reese Witherspoon. Now, the director of this I'm interested in because she's a first-time director, but she's been a writer for many years. She wrote Devil Wears Prada, 27 Dresses, Morning Glory, a movie I like a lot called We Bought a Zoo, based on a true story.
Yeah, I saw that.
She also wrote the recent Cruella movie for Disney. So I'm curious to see what she ends up doing as a director. Several of those I mentioned are some of my wife's favorites that I've sat through many times, and I've actually enjoyed most of them. So again, curious to see what she ends up doing with this, little romantic comedy, which is a genre that's to me very hit or miss. Up next was Murder Mystery 2, the sequel to Murder Mystery, starring Adam Sandler and Jennifer Aniston. This one also has Mark Strong in there as a new character. So this one, the first one I thought was just okay. I didn't think it was as bad as some of Adam Sandler's movies, but
Right.
it wasn't anything I was over the moon about.
I think I probably would give it probably 3 stars. I did like it.
Yeah.
I didn't expect a sequel was coming, but
Right. Yeah, me neither. So yeah, that's coming on March 31st. And then coming May 12th is The Mother. This is starring Jennifer Lopez. It looks like some kind of intense action thriller. I couldn't really tell what the story is. Is it like Taken or something, maybe? I'm not sure. But she's going to be in that with Joseph Fiennes, who's an actor I like quite a bit. This is from director Nikki Caro. She's a director I really like. She did McFarlane USA with Kevin Costner. This is a true story. Came out, I think, in 2015. I saw it in the theater. It was a great movie. Very inspirational, true story. She also did the recent Mulan film, the live action version for Disney. So I'm curious. Again, as a director, I think she's very talented. I wasn't a huge fan of Mulan, but like I said, I like McFarlane a lot. So we'll have to wait and see how that turns out. Next up is Extraction 2. So the sequel to Extraction. This is the big Chris Hemsworth action film that came out just a couple years back. Sam Hargrove is a director on this project. He's been a stunt coordinator in Hollywood for years. He worked on some of the biggest movies of recent decades: Civil War, Infinity War, Endgame. I mean, this guy has been all over Marvel doing all their stunts and action sequences. So it was really cool to see him behind the camera on the first one. He did a great job with those action sequences. The story I thought was pretty engaging too. A little forgettable, a little generic, but it was fun. So I'm curious to see where they take this character and kind of how they expand on him and his backstory. And this one's coming out June 16th.
Yeah, I didn't see that first. Did you see the first Extraction, Josh?
I did. I thought it was one of the better Netflix films.
Really?
They usually put out a few. I don't know. They put out a lot of movies. I feel like most of them I don't watch, but the half of the ones I do are good, and half of the ones I do aren't good. So I thought this was one of the better ones.
Okay.
I won't say a spoiler then because you haven't seen it. But
no, I'm definitely gonna watch it, especially with this one coming out. I'm definitely gonna watch both probably.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see how they explain some things at the beginning of this movie.
Gotcha.
So I'll just say that.
Okay.
Right. Exactly. I agree. Coming out in July, this movie was bumped. It was actually originally scheduled to come out back in December. It's called They Cloned Tyrone. This is a kind of like sci-fi action comedy starring John Boyega, Jamie Foxx, and Teyonah Parris with Kiefer Sutherland. I found out he's in this as well. So yeah, I'm really curious about this. We got a very quick glimpse of it in the this teaser, but I'm very intrigued. Jewel Taylor is directing it. It's his debut film. Great cast, great kind of style to it. It's got a really grainy kind of like 1970s vibe to the little bit of footage that we saw. Did you guys catch that in there? Are you curious about this?
Barely, yeah. It went so fast,
Yeah.
I didn't know it was sci-fi. I didn't expect that at all. I thought it was going to be like a kind of like more urban-y, in the streets in a city kind of thing, which it might be, but I didn't know it was going to be sci-fi.
Right. Yeah. Should be interesting. All right. So yeah, They Cloned Tyrone. That's coming out on July 21st.
Hey, a quick survey. Jamie Foxx, like him better as a comedian, or you like his more serious roles better?
I think I've only seen serious roles.
You only have seen serious roles?
I don't know. What are some of his comedy ones?
Well, he was in Horrible Bosses. He was hilarious in that. He had more of a smaller part though.
Okay.
Boy, I'm trying to think what else. He's definitely been in some comedies. He started out in comedy. Didn't
there's
he
always
In Living Color.
There's always a tinge of comedy, I feel like, to what he does, even in stuff like Baby Driver.
Yeah, exactly.
That's true. Yeah.
He's funny in that,
Right.
So yeah, I think he's great at both, honestly. I mean, Ray is always the thing that pops into my head, just because that is I think that's a great performance, difficult performance to pull off, and he did a great job in that movie. But yeah, everything I've seen him in, I've enjoyed.
Yeah.
All right, we're gonna move on to Heart of Stone. This is another action movie set to release August 11th. Tom Harper's directing it. He did a movie I liked on Amazon a couple years ago called The Aeronauts, with Eddie Redmayne and Felicity Jones. It's based on a true story. That was, I think, a pretty solid film. And this one stars Jamie Dornan and Gal Gadot, our Wonder Woman. So really curious about that one. Moving on to our next one, which is Lift. This is a heist comedy, also coming out in August 25th. It stars Kevin Hart, Gugu Mbatha Raw, Jacob Batalon, many people will know as Ned from the Spider-Man movies, Sam Worthington, who just, we saw in Avatar, Billy Magnussen, who's kind of an up-and-coming actor, and Vincent D'Onofrio as well. And this is directed by F. Gary Gray, who's a director that I like quite a bit. He did a movie I really like, another heist movie called The Italian Job, the remake of The Italian Job with Mark Wahlberg, which is really cool. He's done a few I haven't cared for, but I think overall he usually delivers a pretty solid movie. And with this cast, that's really what gets me more excited is the cast. So what are your thoughts on this? Any thoughts on Lift?
Again, they don't give us a whole lot. So, I mean, the cast is, sounds pretty good. Kevin Hart is pretty funny. He's been in some of the funnier movies I've seen in the last 5 years. I mean, they're all with The Rock, but still.
Right.
But he can be really funny. I tend to gravitate toward heist movies, even though most of the time I don't even like them, but it's a concept, right? To see what happens. But there's been some good ones, but it's probably one I'll see if nothing else because of a couple of the actors and the heist slant.
Yeah, for sure. Josh, any thoughts on this one?
I didn't know all these actors were in it. I just saw the little bit they gave us, and I was like, okay, Kevin Hart. I don't know. Right. I don't go out of my way to watch Kevin Hart movies, but I enjoy them, like Bert said. But yeah, with that cast, I don't know. I'm a lot more intrigued now. Pretty sure I'll check it out.
Next up is a fantasy film called Damsel. This stars Millie Bobby Brown from Stranger Things fame, Enola Holmes. Some might know her from that. Nick Robinson is also in this, who's the older brother in Jurassic World. And then it also stars Robin Wright and Angela Bassett. Pretty good star power there. It's from a director. I've only seen one of his movies. His name's Juan Carlos Fresnadino, and he directed 28 Weeks Later, so the sequel to 28 Days Later, which I think is just as good, if not better, than the original. So Damsel, yeah, it's kind of this fantasy, looks kind of Princess Bride-ish, which is funny that Robin Wright is in it too. Yeah, I'm definitely going to check this one out. Any thoughts on that one, guys?
Just need to see more.
I don't know. I'm excited for it.
Yeah,
there's
fantasy. Right. Yeah, fantasy. I hear there's dragons in it, and that kind of stuff. So should be interesting. Up next is Pain Hustlers. This is a comedy coming on October 27th, starring Emily Blunt, Chris Evans, and Andy Garcia. This is from a director named David Yates. He directed the last 4 Harry Potter films, as well as all of the Fantastic Beasts movies. While I like his Harry Potter movies, not a huge fan of Fantastic Beasts, I really liked his Tarzan movie, Legend of Tarzan, with Alexander Skarsgård, from 2016. This is really good. I really like this movie.
Wow.
And so, I'm curious. I'm glad he's branching out from the wizarding world and doing other things. And so, this one's one that I'm curious about.
Andy Garcia, he was basically an A-lister back in the 90s.
Oh, sure.
He just fell off the radar almost. I might occasionally see him in anything these days.
Right, it's true. Yeah, with Blunt and Evans right there, I'm in because they're just such good actors.
Two of the best. Yeah.
And fun fact on this one too, they actually did some filming in Florida. There's several shots of a couple of bridges and areas in downtown Tampa that we should be able to see.
Interesting. I did not know that. That's very cool.
That kind of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fun. Josh and I are both Florida residents, for those who don't know. Next up, from David Fincher, this is a movie called The Killer, which is kind of a psychological thriller action film starring Michael Fassbender and Tilda Swinton. So very, very interested in that one. That is one that I'm very much looking forward to. This is a director, behind Social Network, The Game, Fight Club, all these great movies that he's made over his career. Very interesting filmmaker. He worked with Netflix recently on Mank, which is a movie I really liked about the making of Citizen Kane. So yeah, The Killer, that's one that's high on my watch list for sure.
Fincher's Panic Room is my favorite.
Oh, that's a good one.
Great movie. Yeah. It's so funny. Jared Leto is so funny in that movie.
That's right. He is. Yeah. Moving on to our next one, which is an animated musical comedy called Leo. This is going to feature the voice talents of Adam Sandler, Bill Burr, Cicely Strong, Jason Alexander, Rob Schneider, Nick Swardson, as well as Sadie, Sonny, and Jackie Sandler, who are Adam Sandler's children, are going to provide voices here. And it's got 3 directors, as many animated movies have multiple directors. It takes so long to make. Robert Smigel, who worked with Sandler on many things, including Saturday Night Live and Punch Drunk Love, which is one of my favorites of his. And then Robert Marinetti and David Wachenheim. So that one will be released on November 22nd. Adam Sandler stars as a pet iguana. It should be fun. Next up, a psychological thriller called Leave the World Behind. This one I'm really curious about. It's a director who hasn't done a lot. He's done a lot of small indie movies. His name is Sam Esmail. And this one stars Julia Roberts, Mahershala Ali, Ethan Hawke, and I found out Kevin Bacon is in this as well. So quite a good cast. And again, it looks like kind of one of these odd psychological thriller. I got a little bit of M. Night vibes from it. Not sure what it's about, but it looks very intriguing.
Yeah, I thought the part that stood out to me, aside from just the cast, was like when they showed the line of cars and they were all uniform white Teslas. Like, I don't know, that seemed a very intentional choice.
Definitely.
So it'll be interesting to see what they're going for here.
Yeah, that will be interesting. Wonder what Elon thinks of that. Moving on to our final film in this teaser, which they saved the best for last, Rebel Moon. This is a highly anticipated film by all of us. Bert and I had a podcast about our top 5 most anticipated films of the year, and this was very high on both of our lists. December 22nd, this one will officially be released. We finally got that release date set. It's a big sci-fi action-adventure film. Snyder has said it's inspired by Seven Samurai, as well as his love for Star Wars. So think of these things kind of combined. Should be really interesting to see what he ends up doing here, his own kind of sci-fi universe he's creating. And great cast: Jaimin Hunsu, Charlie Hunnam, Sophia Boutella, Ray Fisher, Jenna Malone, Corey Stoll, Ed Skrein, Ray Porter, Carrie Elways, and Anthony Hopkins will all play parts in this film. So very, very excited about this movie. Just thinking about that opening sequence in Man of Steel writ large, basically, that's kind of what I'm hoping for, and what I think we're going to get from the footage we see here. It looks like that's kind of what he's going for. So I know you guys are excited. Bert, what's your take on Rebel Moon?
Some of Zack Snyder's stuff, not all of it, but the ones I like, I really love, and so this looks great. It's like Star Wars, you don't want me? Okay, watch this. Is what I'm thinking is gonna be.
I heard he pitched this to Lucasfilm. Looks like they're going to be kicking themselves. Although, again, we talked about this before. I think I'm happier with this. This way he can do more of what he wants rather than stay confined in what Star Wars is. It's kind of a specific thing. But although it is branching out with stuff like Andor, but I still feel like, this is the better option for a guy like Snyder, who has kind of just a wild vision. Josh, what are your thoughts on Rebel Moon?
Well, I was going to ask, is this supposed to be like literally what he was, except not Star Wars?
That's what it seems like. Yeah. From what I've heard, was his pitch to Lucasfilm, that he's now basically taking the lightsabers out and just doing his own version.
Because it'll be really interesting to see, like, I don't know. First of all, I'm super excited for this, but just watching the little snippet several times, like, I was like, oh, the laser sounds are different, but it'll be interesting to see, like, just Hold Star could have been like, and then kind of compare the two. It'll be interesting to see how all that goes and what the comparison is.
With a lot of other directors, I would wonder, is this just going to feel like a Star Wars ripoff? But with Zack Snyder, I don't think that'd be the case at all.
Absolutely. Yep. So December 22nd, that date has already been marked on my calendar. I know where I'll be.
So far away.
I know, it's so far away. I hope they get the theatrical release. They've been doing these limited runs with Glass Onion and other movies recently. So hopefully it gets to, have its day on the big screen as well. All right, folks. Well, that will do it for movie news. A lot of movie news this week we wanted to cover. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. But now we're going to jump into our main topic, which is defending bad movies. Bad in quotations. These are movies that other people think are really bad, but we really enjoy. This is really just an exercise in showing that cinema is an art form, and like all art forms, it is subjective. And so what one person thinks is great, another person might think is terrible. So we're going to talk about some of these movies, some controversial picks. So bear with us. Let us know some of your picks in the comments below. Let us know your thoughts on all these movies as well. We'd love to have a conversation with you down there. Kicking us off is Bert. What is your first bad movie?
It's the movie that we've been talking about covering for a long time, and Bender.
Yes. Finally.
Much maligned film. Let me just read a few quotes from some external reviewers. Roger Ebert, I think he himself reviewed this movie, because obviously the reviews continue on even after his passing. It's just not him writing them, as far as we can. And he said, "The Last Air, agonizing experience in every category I can think of, and others still waiting to be invented." So he hated it. Then I've got a James Bernardelli from a Real Views. These are off of IMDb. He said, "The Last Airbender is an insult to anyone with triple-digit IQ and a willingness to use it in the confines of a movie theater. This is bad filmmaking and bad storytelling. It also sounds what should be the death knell to M. Night's career." That never happened.
Interesting.
Got LA
Hopefully.
Weekly, a Robert Wolanski, he gave it 10 out of 100. So that's like less than 1 star. He said, "This is one muddled attempt at franchise making, confusing, drab, sluggish, ugly too, if you're forced to see it in 3D, which I thought was interesting. I'm going to comment more on that in a minute. And then a couple more here. Hollywood Reporter Kirk Honeycutt gave it 30 out of 100. He said, "Max, the film is still struggling to introduce the world of the film and its strange rules." New York Post Lou Luminac, he gave it 0 out of 100. So as low as you can go. He said, "If M. Night sold his soul to the devil for the success of The Sixth Sense, I think his satanic majesty has finally collected in full with The Last Airbender. Stilted dialogue, wooden acting, glacial pacing, cheesy special effects, tacky looking sets, ugly costumes, poorly staged and edited action sequences, all cut rate 3D." Wow. That's they really
scathing,
came at it there. Yeah.
Yeah.
They really came at it. I don't love The Last Airbender. This is not a star film for me, but I can tell you that I've had numerous good experiences in the 5 or so times already that I've watched it. I mean, if someone came to me and said 5-star film, I'd probably go on the other side and say, well, what about, some of these things that are some legitimate criticisms about it.
Sure.
But here's what I do like about Last Airbender. I do like the look. I think the sets are really great. There's these huge ships that they're almost like pirate ships, but it's not a pirate film. So I don't know how you describe them. Bigger, very ornate. I like there's several villages sets with these ancient temples, and then there's the giant set toward the end, sort of the big frozen winter sort of temple village set. I think that's really cool. I like that. I think it looks great in 3D. This is one of the movies that I tell people, if you can watch something in 3D, watch this one, because I saw it in 3D at the theater and it was amazing. Now since then I've seen some that are actually even better, but that just adds an extra depth to it. I like the fact that kids can watch it. It's pretty kid friendly, and young criticisms. Yeah, I do. Noah Ringer, is that his name?
Yep.
It's as bad as Jake Lloyd in episode 1 of Star Wars. Yeah, sometimes, yeah. But sort of the spirit and optimism he brings to the role. So it may not be the best acting job, the energy he brings to the role. So I'll defend it that way. Let's see, his name is Jackson Rathbone, pulls the avatar out of the bubble. Is his acting maybe as bad as Hayden Christensen's in episode 2? Sure, at times. It doesn't detract from the overall. It is the flying creature that they get on and ride around, without them ever even saying thank you or petting him. Is that sort of a direct rip from Neverending Story? It would seem, but I don't care. It's fun. It's just kind of a family movie. It's it's probably a 3.5 star at the most, but it does get better in 3D. That's my defense.
Okay, interesting thoughts. Yeah, this is a movie, much maligned. A lot of YouTubers have all kinds of rants on this one, so we don't have to bash it too much. But yeah, it's a disappointment for me rewatching it. I hadn't seen this in several years, but I do
Gotcha.
have the Blu-ray,
Yeah, yeah.
and it
Nice.
does look good. I think that is a positive thing I can say about it is the visuals are quite good.
Hmm.
I really like a couple of scenes. There's a scene with Aang towards the end, or Ong as they call him. That's something we'll talk about in a moment.
Yeah.
But he creates this big tidal wave, and there's this really great shot of him in the Avatar state doing this big tidal wave
Yes.
to fend off the Fire Nation, which is great. Some of the visuals I think work really well. Unfortunately, pretty much everything else fails. I think M. Night wrote, directed, and produced this, and he was supposedly a huge fan of the series. I'm a huge fan of the series. I'll say that up front. I've got the entire series on Blu-ray. I've watched it numerous times. I mean, this is a show that just has this great mythology to it, great storyline, great characters. It's funny, it's engaging, it's got great action sequence. I mean, just everything you could want in a show. And this one, it just, I think it let us down as fans. Going in with expectations we talk about a lot here. Maybe we're a little too high. Looking at it a couple nights ago, editing is just kind of odd. The way they will go fade in and out of scenes at certain times
Sure.
is very odd choices. The blocking of certain actors and where he has them standing and how he's shooting them is very kind of strange. I'm not sure why he made some of these decisions. They're just kind of basic filmmaking decisions that he's done way
Yeah.
better on
Mhm.
films before this,
I
which
agree.
is what's
Yeah.
very strange about it to me. I don't know if there was a producer on set trying to like co-direct or something. I don't know what happened, but
Yeah.
he really dropped the ball here when it comes to some of these more basic things. Dialogue, I think, is very dull. A lot of exposition that he's trying to get out. And look, he had a thankless task taking this beloved series, an entire season, like I think 20 episodes or something, condensing it into under 2 hours. I mean, that is just so difficult to do. I can't imagine being in his shoes. So it just didn't work out for me. The acting performances, like you mentioned, child actors is like his thing. Sixth Sense. I mean, Haley Joel Osment is incredible in that.
He was too
Unbreakable.
old. He was too old to play Avatar here.
Right, exactly. I'm just saying M. Night has done this better before,
Yeah.
Unbreakable, Spencer Treat Clark, his performance is great in that movie. Signs, Abigail Breslin, he's done this before. That it's been so well done. And here it's just so stale and so wooden. The music, I think, is one of the highlights as well.
Yes. It's a good score.
It is a pretty good score. I really enjoyed a lot of the music. He's having to rush through the story.
Yeah.
It just
Yeah.
feels like it's cramming 10 hours of material into 90 minutes, and it just doesn't quite add up. So he also changes things, as I talked about the pronunciations of characters' names. He was trying to be more ethnically accurate with the pronunciations. He's from India. For fans in America like us that knew these characters by different pronunciations, it was just very off-putting.
Mm.
So I commend him for what he was trying to do, but again, it just didn't work out. The creators of the show, Michael Dante DiMartino and Brian Conizico, were not consulted for this, which is kind of disappointing. They weren't really involved in the production much at all. A big letdown when I was watching this. Again, some visual moments work. The action too. I wanted to mention they're doing these very intricate kind of katas. That was why Noah Ringer was cast, because he was a martial artist, and it ultimately just the way it first of all takes too much time for them to fight each other if they're doing all these katas before they actually can bend, and the bending just didn't have the power behind it that it has in the show.
I agree. Yeah, it didn't.
And so yeah, they kind of dropped the ball there too. So yeah, unfortunately, I could only give it 1 star. It for the score, maybe I could go to 1.5. A couple cool visuals, like you're saying, some of the sets are pretty cool looking. The costumes, I thought were fine. Dev Patel, I think, actually is the best actor in this as Zuko. who was my favorite character. I thought he did a pretty good job. But yeah, I'm at 1 star on it. Josh, what was your take on Last Airbender?
Mediocre 3 here, 3 out of 5 stars.
Oh,
When I hear any of the show,
yeah, me either.
but several of my friends did, and they obviously hated the movie. And I was like, I don't know, it's fine. But I agree with some of the stuff you guys both said. Like, I don't know why people are complaining about the visuals. I thought that was one of the highlights. And then I thought Uncle Iroh was really cool. Like, obviously one of the things they change is like what you said, Cameron, about the powers, and the Fire Nation is supposed to be able to generate their own fire, not have to have it from a source. Oh, I don't know why he changed that, but the moment when we're spoiling things, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. When Uncle Iroh projects his own fire and everything, like that was, even though, obviously they were supposed to be able to do that anyway, it was still a really cool moment in the world that he created here in this movie. And I just thought Uncle Iroh's character was really cool too, even though obviously he's very different from the show,
Right.
which now I have seen, and I totally agree. It's an amazing show. This is one movie where can I just be a fly on production? Because I would love a behind the scenes documentary, like, to know why. I just want to know why. Why did he, like, I like what you said about why he changed the names. I didn't know that. Why did he change some of the powers with firebending, and why is it for earthbenders to move a tiny little rock? I don't understand what went into this. I want to know why, because it would be very interesting to see.
Yeah.
I'm very curious.
My thought on the bending was that he probably didn't want them to all be so powerful that by the time we got to the end of the series, because he was going to do 3 movies, right? One based on each season of the show. And so by the time we got to season 3, they are doing these big, powerful things, and it's more impactful. If we see where they start is kind of from a place of a weakness, maybe.
That's true.
And they kind of build to it. That's my only thought of what he kind of could have been thinking about.
And this is his first big franchise film, right? This is for, like, kind of thrown into the thick of it here, right? So that could have had something to do with it, the pressure, like you said, or just like, here's all this money that you usually don't spend on films, and here blah blah blah, and that could have very well much played into it as well.
Yeah,
I don't think he'd done much action before this, right?
That's true. He hadn't done a lot of action,
you're right.
And it was something that, it wasn't an original screenplay. It was based on something he hadn't written. All of his other movies up into this point were based on original screenplays, ideas he came up with. So yeah, I think that was something that probably got into his head a little bit, because he did want to do it justice. I'm sure, like I said, he was a fan. His kids were fans. That's how he got into it. And the pressure probably just got to him. I don't know.
If this wasn't sort of a family in more like the 2-star range, it's something that, despite its flaws, I've gotten quite a bit of enjoyment out of multiple viewings. So
great. Josh, you're up next. What is your first movie?
For a bad movie is Old Dogs, starring Robin Williams and John Travolta. They're kind of like what's a public relations firm that they both work in, and it's a Disney movie on Disney Plus. Came back out in, I think, 2008 or something. Comedy kind of thing with some heart. They're both aging. They're both up there. And they use that in a comedic fashion in this movie, as Robin Williams discovers that he has 2 7-year-olds that he has to now take care of. Interesting stuff going on here, but I enjoyed the movie. I remember loving it when it first came out, when we saw it as a family. My dad definitely loves physical humor and slapstick comedy, so other people laughing in a room really makes a big difference, I feel like. And that's why I love, just side tangent, seeing Marvel films stay instead of even later that weekend. I think that makes a big difference. And I think it did here as well. Like I said, with just like all of us watching as a family, just really enjoying it and having good times. Is like, I don't know how these critics watch it, but just seeing it by yourself, I think that makes a big difference. But some of what was said here, I got a 1 on Letterboxd. Rotten Tomatoes has a staggering 5%. That was what I was drawn to immediately. I was like, 5%, my goodness. Some of the critics here, Joshua Starnes from comingsoon.net. He said it was heartless, brainless, and unable to do anything with what it has to offer. Old Dogs doesn't know what it's offering. Radio Times, Karen, I can't pronounce her last name, Krizanovich. She said that Travolta and Williams slapstick setups that are neither witty nor funny. And then Alistair Harkness said, "You've never experienced horror until you've seen Robin Williams in a Speedo getting a spray tan." I thought that was funny. One other thing I wanted to mention was, I guess, SBS.com. It's an Australian site. Simon Foster, he said, there's a mixed up medication gag, a guy in a gorilla suit gag, and a suntan gone wrong gag. And you begin to understand the level of inspiration. So obviously they didn't like it. Most of them were talking about just not finding it funny. And some of what you guys talked about last time about like what you go into the film with and how you concept of the film, what the film's trying to do for itself, what the film's trying to speak of for itself, and how we take that or what we do with it. But yeah, it looks like most critics don't like slapstick comedy, I'm gathering. And it looks like
That's
they don't care a lot for. Yeah, it's like, I mean, obviously this isn't supposed to be an Oscar-winning film. Clearly, It's not what it's going for. It's going for a slapstick comedy movie with some famous actors playing a bit on their and some heart. So, and that's what we were given. That's what we got. So that's what I really liked about it. I thought the gorilla gag still weirds me out, but I thought because it's obviously not supposed to be a real gorilla. It's supposed to be a gorilla in a suit, but it's supposed to be a real gorilla in the movies. That whole scene's weird, but I don't know. I thought the comedy was great. I love the I don't know myself. It looks like I'm a old guy who just peed my pants with John Travolta as he's trying to flirt with this much younger woman, and then Seth Green just kind of hides behind the other guy. I really enjoyed it. So I think that's pretty much what kind of what they were speaking against. None of them really talked about another bash the heart of the film, which I think is there. The kids, I think, are both perfect. They're not like Oscar-winning performances, obviously, but I think they both did good at what they were told to do as actors, and just an engagement with Robin Williams. I think it went well. I don't know. What do you guys think about it?
So I hadn't seen this. This is one that I missed, and so I decided to watch it the other night with my wife, and we definitely got some laughs out of it. I mean, it definitely has some moments that will make you laugh out loud if you got a pulse. I think it's some pretty funny stuff. So yeah, Travolta and Williams, I'm a big fan of both those guys. Seth Green I like. Matt Dillon shows up for a moment. Justin Long has a really good cameo.
His part was so good.
Yeah, I liked him.
So
Kelly
weird.
Preston, who of course was married to Travolta. It's funny that she's married to Williams in the movie. Has since passed away, unfortunately, but yeah, she's in there, and Rita Wilson is in there as well for a couple minutes. So I like the cast. I think Travolta and Williams, they're obviously pretty good buddies. They have good chemistry here. It's interesting that they had Robin Williams play the straight man though, and have Travolta play the more wild guy. I thought that was an interesting choice, and I think they did it probably because Williams is just a better actor, I think, and so yeah, I like that kind of twist. He does his best with a script that I think is pretty weak. I don't think it's again, they're not going for Oscar worthy fare like you said, but
No.
It does have some weak spots. I felt that it dragged out a little too long, even though it is a pretty short runtime. There were some moments where I was kind of just, looking at my watch, waiting for it to be over. But then they would hit me with another funny moment. So it kind of worked out. The Frisbee scene is just one of my favorites. I think that is, first of all, just really well shot and edited. It's kind of shot like a really cool action movie, some slow-mo in there and some really, really cool shots. So that scene stood out. Really bizarre uses of CGI though that were kind of off-putting with the faces that they're making.
Yeah, the face twitching.
Yeah, it was a little creepy, unintentionally so. I think that stuff didn't really work. The monkey suit, was very, very strange. The penguin attack was bizarre. So some moments that I just think they were trying maybe a little too hard, took things a little too far into the realm of like fantasy almost, that just didn't jive with the rest of the movie. Those things didn't really work for me. The kids, they're fine. They're a little unlikable at certain scenes, but they're fine overall. very predictable. Obviously, you know exactly what's going to happen as soon as this movie starts. I mean, you can kind of predict the entire thing, where the story's going. But overall, it's harmless entertainment. I got some laughs out of it. I got to watch some actors that I like. I just think it's been done better before. This whole kind of like irresponsible guy learning responsibility, becoming a father.
Yeah.
3 Men and a Baby did it. Uncle Buck did it. Big Daddy with Adam Sandler did it. Even Jurassic Park, the first one, to a certain extent, did this.
That's true.
And so, it's been done better elsewhere. I probably won't watch it again, honestly. So I'm at 2 stars on it. Again, a lot of stuff I liked, but overall, it just kind of the bad outweighed the good a little bit for me. A couple I wanted to recommend real quick: a much better Robin Williams movie, Mrs. Doubtfire, which kind of has a similar premise in some ways. That's one of my favorites. And then another great one, Old Guys Learning Responsibility, Secondhand Lions.
Oh yeah.
These two, Michael Caine, Robert Duvall, have to become kind of father figures to their nephews. So this is another one I would check out before I would watch Old Dogs.
Those are both better movies.
Yeah.
Boy, the thing is, everybody finds something, like everybody thinks funny is something different, like this is slapstick. So I really like, for instance, a movie that pops in my mind is Black Sheep, with Chris Farley and David Spade. I think a lot of people hated it. Critics absolutely hated it. I thought that was terrifically funny slapstick. I think comedy is a tough one to do when you're defending, because it may be the most subjective category. I mean, I can't say for sure, but it's like it could be really well put together and make a lot of people laugh, but you could be the one person that doesn't find any of it funny, and therefore you're not going to enjoy it. So I don't know. So here's my thoughts about Old Dogs. It's got Robin Williams, one of my maybe top 5 actors of all time. He's obviously tremendous. I'm not a huge Travolta fan. I did see this back when it came out, and so I hadn't seen it since then, but I remembered liking it. So I was kind of expecting it to be a little bit better. And unfortunately for me, the humor just really did not land. And Cam kind of alluded to this a little bit too. It kind of bordered on cringy sometimes. I think Cam kind of mentioned like the smile, like Travolta's giant smile, like it was so kind of off-putting. I couldn't really even laugh at it. It was so bizarre. And then like Rita Wilson has this cross-eyed thing she's doing, and I wanted her to just quit it because it was just so unappealing. I'm like, why would they think that that's funny? Really? I mean, to me, at least, again, to me, I was more off-putting than anything. And then there's that scene with where there's like a human puppet stunt. You remember that part where he's remotely trying to control Rob. It was one of the most bizarre things I've ever seen on film. I think almost like a version of Cyrano de Bergerac or something, except a physical form. So strange. And then Justin Long, I love seeing him in almost any movie he's in. And I guess he was just brought in a few scenes, and it almost like they told him, just make something up and just try to make it funny. Because what he does, accusing Travolta of stealing his girl, it makes no sense. And then he just goes all in, and he just like doubles down and triples down. And I'm like, what is this even about? It's never referenced again. It just made no sense at all. So there were some things I did like, seeing, a Robin Williams movie I hadn't seen in a while, because he's so missed, I did actually like the gorilla stuff. I thought it was pretty funny, because Seth Green, I think, is pretty funny. So I got a few laughs out of that, the golf scene. So there were a few laughs, but mostly I was really disappointed in my second viewing of it. Even the heartfelt stuff, I felt it mostly did not succeed. Like maybe a little bit it succeeded, at least it tried, let's put it that way. So yeah, I unfortunately I probably am at about 1.5 stars on this one.
Okay.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Honest opinions here from the Real World Podcast. So yeah, that's part of it. We're not all going to agree on all these, obviously. So
right.
Yeah, but that was a good pick, Josh. And so let's move on to my first pick, which is Cowboys and Aliens. This is a film, came out in 2011, directed by Jon Favreau. It has a 44% on Rotten Tomatoes, 43 audience score. Letterboxd, the average is 2.3. And so here's what some reviewers had to say. at the time of release. Brent McKnight with The Last Thing I See says it commits the one cardinal sin that a movie with such a ridiculous concept absolutely cannot commit. It's boring. Jason Best with Movie Talk said, the idea of this is so wild that it's a shame the film doesn't make more of it. Greg Mackey with the Star Democrat newspaper said a dour affair that fails to capture the spirit of either genres. James Kendrick with Q Network Film Desk said takes itself too seriously, thus bleeding it of the pulpy B-movie fun the title suggests. And then Nick Deigman with Fan the Fire said it really should have been called Alien Bracelet versus Aliens with some cowboys falling off their horses. So people didn't seem to care for this. And it seems that the main issue was the tone. That seems to be the thing, that people didn't think that the two genres, the Western and the sci-fi element, were blended very well. I completely disagree. I really enjoy this movie a lot. I think it definitely has the spirit of a Western in it. And when it brings in the sci-fi elements, those fully work as well. The movie had a budget of $163 million. It only grossed $174. So it didn't even break even after marketing. And it had been in development since 1997. That was shortly after the comic book on which it's based was written. And Steven Spielberg had it for a while, and he was trying to figure out how to make it work. Later, Ron Howard and Brian Grazer came on board and kind of brought in some new ideas. So this started off as a comedy. They thought the only way this could work was if it was basically Blazing Saddles. That was kind of what they were going for. This Mel Brooks, very silly, slapsticky, sci-fi cowboy mashup. And so that was kind of their idea behind it. Eventually, Robert Downey Jr. was cast right around the same time as Iron Man. And when he was on the set of Iron Man 2, as it was still in development, he told Jon Favreau about it. And then he got involved. And so he brought in, along with Ron Howard, kind of this idea of no, let's take it a little more seriously. Let's not make it a comedy. Let's really make this a Western that just happens to have aliens in it. And that's kind of where they took it from there. Robert Orci, Alex Kurtzman were brought on as screenwriters along with Damon Lindelof. And so they kind of reworked the entire script together as a team. Look, I think, again, when you start off the movie, that opening scene of Daniel Craig waking up in the desert, and then taking out those three guys that are coming to mess with him, that sets up the tone. That's okay. We're taking this seriously. This is a Western. Really, I think this would actually just be a great Western without the aliens. And that's what I think, the strength of the story and screenplay is we kind of have this mystery set up. This guy has amnesia. He doesn't know where he came from, who he is. We learn that he's wanted. We learn eventually his entire backstory. It sets up, the townsfolk really well. We get to know them really quickly right up front. We know kind of who everyone is, what their personalities are, and that works out really well. So I like the cast here a lot. Again, Daniel Craig, I think, has a difficult job playing an amnesiac guy who's going from being an outlaw to a hero. That's kind of his journey. Of course, Harrison Ford, my favorite actor, shows up here as kind of a villain almost initially. Colonel Dollarhide. He's kind of playing his grumpy old man vibe here to the fullest, which is great. But he's got a lot of soul to him too. As we go on throughout the movie, I think that's revealed in a really great way. Olivia Wilde, who we learn is playing an alien herself, has a very otherworldly vibe to her, I think, throughout the entire film. And the supporting cast is great too. Clancy Brown, Sam Rockwell, Paul Dano, Adam Beach, Walton Goggins. Of course, Noah Ringer, Aang, Avatar, shows up here as well, in a much better performance. And so, they just do everything really well with the character arcs. Everyone has kind of a little character arc that they go through. The kind of inspiration behind this was some classic Westerns like Stagecoach. He screened that. Jon Favreau screened that for the cast as well as the searchers, both John Wayne films directed by John Ford, Sergio Leone's Man with No Name trilogy, kind of taking inspiration from that. And then he wanted to mash that up with stuff like Aliens, stuff like Predator, those kind of vibes to it as well. So I think it does it very well. Again, does it take itself too seriously? I think that all depends on what you're going in expecting. I think a lot of people went in expecting Cowboys Aliens, that's ridiculous. That has to be some kind of silly, B-movie comedy or something, but it's got a big budget. I think the effects are great. It's shot really well. Matthew Libatique shot the Iron Man movies with Favreau as well, and he's got a really good eye. Harry Gregson Williams composed the score. He's a composer I really like as well. So I think it just all comes together really well. Very satisfying conclusion. It's got some spiritual themes to it. It's got some great action set pieces. I just think all in all, solid movie all around. One that I've visited numerous times because these are my two favorite genres. And so it's kind of right up my alley. So that's my thought on it. Bert, what's your thought on Cowboys and Aliens?
I think that there was nothing that blew me away about it, and there was nothing that was really bad about it. I saw it in the theater when it came out, and I remembered thinking that it was not so great. I didn't hate it then either, but I was really actually pleasantly surprised by watching it this time. I really like the alien stuff that they come up with here. The aliens look cool. Like the look to them is really interesting. The alien ships and their structures are really cool. Daniel Craig is a bad dude. I mean, I don't know how Robert Downey would have pulled off some of the physicality here. And then Sam Rockwell is always great when he's allowed to be funny, but there was only maybe one crack really that he even was allowed to do. Yeah. So I when you're talking about it, I was thinking maybe that would have been better if it was a little funnier, because they definitely did go for a serious tone. Harrison Ford is fine here. I mean, I don't think he's ever been bad. It's just that I almost feel like the film suffered a little bit because of his presence. I'm not saying he's miscast in it. If you went back 2-3 decades, he probably would have had the starring role, I mean, Daniel Craig even wears a hat, kind of like Indiana Jones, so those are kind of some of the thoughts I had when I was watching it. There's a lot of CGI alien creatures, and they're out in the really bright open area, and the CGI is very good because, as we talked about, that's when it's hardest to hide it. And so I thought that held up pretty well, and the way they move around and stuff, that could have looked awful, and it doesn't. It looks good. So I enjoyed it. I would give this 3 stars, and it was an enjoyable viewing.
Cool. Josh, your thoughts on Cowboys and Aliens?
I'd say the first time I saw it, I think, and this goes back to what you were saying too, like it's like what your expectations and what you go into it with, and what you take the film as. But the first time I saw it, I can't remember if it was in theaters or not, but I didn't care for it. I didn't think I'd ever watch it again. I like some aspects of it, which I'll talk about more in a second as well. But it's just the concept killed it for me, like right out of the gate. So I think, and again, that's what I brought into it, was I couldn't get over the concept. It was just ridiculous because I love Westerns and I love sci-fi. So putting them together, it just, the sci-fi, the aliens just totally ungrounds the cowboys, the Westerns, and it just didn't work for me at all the first time I saw it. I know we've talked about it before, so you were trying to get me to watch it again. You said the extended edition's better, and I was like, okay, I'll give it another shot. And I upon seeing the extended edition, I don't know whether it was probably that and the fact that I got over me not liking the concept. I was like, okay, this is what it is.
Changed.
Yeah, the expectations, exactly. It's like, okay, this is what it is. Let's just enjoy. Like, let's put that to the side now, and let's just try and enjoy the movie. And yeah, I thought it was much better. Like what you said, Bert. Actually, I don't know if it was Bert or Cameron who said it, but I think it's a solid film. Not much that blew me away either. Not much that I thought was horrible, but I don't know. I enjoyed it. Like every element I thought worked well. Like the alien design was unique and really cool and scary. That scene where he's coming at Emmett, Noah Ringer's character, like as he's trapped in the crevice of the rock there, with, like, that was scary. That even from the first viewing, that scene has just stuck with me. That's stuck in my brain. Yeah, I thought each element worked well, like the sci-fi part and the Western part. I do agree, Bert, a little bit with what you said about Harrison Ford kind of taking away from the movie. I don't know why. I can't explain it. Like you said, he doesn't do a bad job. But I don't know. Maybe it's
you think
just
he's slumming it here.
No, I don't know. I think it's just because maybe he's too high profile.
Yes.
I don't know. Like when I watched it the first time,
Yeah.
I was like, oh, he's like, I was expecting more of the good guy vibe. So when he was like the bad guy and grumpy and like for most of the movie, I was like, oh, I don't like this. I don't like his character. What's going on here? But like the second viewing, I loved the bit of heart there at the end of the movie with him.
Mm-hmm.
That he shows, like you said, Cameron, I think all the characters have their own little arc, which is really good. I didn't realize who Paul Dano was at the time when I watched it the first time. So seeing him in there the second time, it's like, oh, and he's an amazing actor. He's good in everything, every single thing I've seen him in, which have all been a vast array of roles. But yeah, I got it at 3.5 stars. So yeah, I think it's a good film.
Yeah,
all in all.
great. I'm glad. Yeah, I did
It's definitely
watch.
not boring, that's for sure.
No.
Yeah, right. I know. I don't get that criticism at all. Yeah, the extended cut I do enjoy more. There's a little more action. There's a little more dramatic moments. It takes more time with the characters. So
okay.
I would recommend that one if you haven't seen it. I got to listen to the commentary, and it was really, really good watch. So yeah, awesome. Well, yeah, I've got that one at 4 stars. So again, one I've revisited many, many times. Fun genre mashup.
So I do have one other thing to say about it as well. I do think there are sci-fis that are better and westerns that are better. But if you're watching this and you didn't like the film, give it a second try. Just give it another shot. I liked it so much more on the second try, and just agree with pretty much everything that you said, Cameron, about it. So give it another go.
Awesome. I agree. All right, let's jump into Bert's second pick. What you got?
Well, when it's stormy out and a cloud starts rolling in the movie, you're either watching The Fog or The Mist, and this time it's The Mist. So that's what I've got here for my my second one that I'm gonna look at. I couldn't find older reviews for this and another film, so I just went with user reviews from Letterboxd, just a couple quick blurbs from a few users. So I'll throw a few out there, and they're pretty funny. So this person, Emily's Review is her handle. She said, well, hold on. Josh, you haven't seen it. Are you okay if we do the spoilers? Because it's really hard to talk about. Okay. Yeah. So I guess we'll get to the spoilers eventually, and Josh, you'll find out what we all think about it, of the ending. So Emily's Review said, what a sick, twisted movie. Horrible. And she gave it a 0.5 star. But I looked at the rest of her reviews because I want to see what else she watched. And she also gave a 0.5 star to Herbie Fully Loaded. And she said, bugs are so annoying. And then I got to thinking, well, okay, so does she just hate bugs in general? I mean, because it's a love bug, but is she talking? It's like, is this also why she hated the bugs in the mist? I don't know. I was trying to figure that out. And then this user Jasmine, she said, this is a direct quote. She said, nah. I don't even do reviews, and I thought it was pretty decent overall, excluding the writing. But what the actual beep was that ending? And she gave it a 0.5 star. So that was good. That was funny. She kind of went over the place on that one. A guy named Bobby LaRue said, the monsters were horrendously rendered. This movie was good until the bad CGI octopus beep, and the music didn't really help. So that was interesting. Oh, and then he said, the last 30 seconds utterly destroyed this movie. Frank Darabont's entire filmography has been irreparably damaged because of the beep cop-out ending of this movie.
Dang.
Yeah.
Wow. Strong thoughts.
Yeah.
And Josh, this is, as the mist rolls in, these creatures start attacking these people that are holed up in this grocery store. I guess we should just get the spoiler out there right now, I guess is what I'm saying, because otherwise Josh is going to be lost. So the movie carries on, and then at the end, a group of people that get in a car try to escape, and these creatures that are in the mist, they don't know if they're going to try to attack them in the car or whatnot. And then ultimately they decide to give up and shoot each other and just end it before the monsters attack and kill them, right? And then like seconds after they're all dead, the army rolls up, and it turns out they would have been fine all along. So it's a bit of a pulling the carpet out from under you situation. So, okay. I really, really like The Mist. I think it's a very fun creature feature. I love the location. I love being trapped in like a grocery store. You've got is it Dawn of the Dead, the film with where they're trapped in the mall, the Zack Snyder film. Like I like those kind of things. It's very relatable. It's a place we've all been to so many times. Here in the grocery store, they've got all the supplies they could possibly need. and that's part of the fun. I like the characters. A lot of people think that they were horrible characters that were placed in the film. I think it's got great pacing as a horror film because it doesn't give away much at all early, and it kind of builds and builds. After a little bit, you see a glimpse of the creatures, and then a little more, and then there's this like onslaught of creatures, and it's an all-out war with them in the grocery store. You got definitely probably some animatronic kind of creatures as well as CGI. I think overall the film maintains tension very well. I actually feel tense, when I'm watching it in this situation. And I think that's a credit to the acting and the effects. I'm someone that definitely looks for bad acting in movies, and I just simply don't see it here. I just do not get what people are talking about. And again, I look for that. Like I'm an eagle eye for bad acting. Like I try to, spot that. And same with effects. Same thing. I mean, I'm not saying the CG here is 100% there, but I think it's pretty good. I mean, it's not a Steven Spielberg budget either, I'm sure, is it 1,000% realistic? No, but I feel like it really puts you in that situation in the film and makes the monsters scary. The characters are criticized as being stereotypes and like cardboard characters, but I just don't see it. I mean, I think if they were all pretty boring, then it would get criticized for that. So I don't know how you can really win without having people that are just like, interesting characters. I don't know what else to say. And then as far as the ending, I guess it comes down to the question of, does a bad ending negate an entire film? I gave this quite a bit of thought, but I will say, I'm going to throw out a few others. I Am Legend, right? Main hero, pretty much the only star of the film, doesn't survive. Shutter's Islands twist, you could argue that's already been done. I certainly didn't think it was that effective of a surprise ending. The movie Drag Me to Hell, you haven't seen that, Cam. I'm not going to spoil that, but it could be argued that the final scene renders the entire film pointless. Inception, the film ends with no closure. So that's the question to ponder here. Personally, I enjoy this film all the way up until that moment with the car. And then I just kind of scratch my head and go, yeah, the director reached a little too much on that, but great film. That's where I'm at with The Mist.
Gotcha. Interesting. Well, as we said, Josh hasn't seen this one, but I have, and knew nothing going in, watched it. Yeah. So Frank Darabont, interesting director, because, great movies like Shawshank Redemption, The Green Mile, really talented guy that, knows what he's doing behind the camera. I feel like he probably wasn't the best choice to direct this because he has such a specific style. Those movies are extremely dramatic and heavy and deal with such big themes and ideas and nuanced characters and that kind of stuff. Whereas this is basically like a throwback to classic old sci-fi B movies, 20 Million Miles to Earth, Earth versus Flying Saucers, some of these, which I think are great.
Are those black and white, by the way, Cam?
Yeah, these are.
Because there's I think I told you this is a black and white version of The Mist that
yes.
I don't have it, but I want to try to get it because supposedly it changes the tone of the film quite a bit because it does kind of feel like a throwback to like the 50s.
Yeah, interesting.
It's not a lot of modern pop. There's no pop culture references or anything like that in it.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. I would like to watch that version. That might help it because I'm not a fan. I think that it does some things well when it does go for that creature feature vibe. It works really well, which is the majority of the movie, really.
Right.
And so, I didn't hate it while I was watching it. I thought it was pretty well done. I do think some of the characters are just, they take things a little too far into the realm of that kind of stereotypical, generic, some characters feel a little over the top, like the way they're performing. This, extremely religious woman who's kind of swaying the survivors there. She just goes a little too far, a little too annoying. Some of the characters just aren't very likable. Thomas Jane. Thomas Jane's excellent. I don't know why this guy hasn't broken through and been in huge movies because he's a great actor.
Oh, this film probably fell, from 5 or 6 other people before Thomas Jane got the part.
Exactly. Yeah. So he does a great job, as the lead character. Sam Witwer shows up here, who's an actor I like a lot from Smallville and Star Wars, and I liked his role. It was just kind of a mixed bag of characters. Some I really liked, some I thought were just being a little too over the top with it. A lot of the dialogue's very cheesy. But again, that kind of vibes with this creature feature thing they're doing. It's just that the modern sensibilities kind of get in the way, I think, where he does try to take things a little too seriously. Sometimes the violence is a little too gory at certain moments, things like that I think just kind of work against the movie. Whereas if you had a different director that was a little more into this kind of stuff, I think they could have made it work a little bit better throughout. So yeah, I like what they do with the overall structure. It has a good pace to it. It's just that ending. It just really, really hurts the movie for me. I mean, it really and it wouldn't be as bad, I think, if a child wasn't involved in that scene. That's really what
I didn't mention that, Josh. I left that out on purpose.
Yeah. I had to mention that because that's really the only thing that makes it not a bad ending. Because if there wasn't a child involved, I would probably be like, oh, I can't. But when the kid dies, it's like, oh, okay. They took it a little too far for me. So, overall, I got some enjoyment out of it. The ending just, man, so nihilistic, so hopeless, and such a gut punch that I ended up only at 1.5 stars for this one. So, yeah, that's my thoughts on The Mist. So, Josh, are you going to watch it now?
For sure. I would say everything. I don't know. I'm just super intrigued now. I like a bunch of the stuff you said, Bird, about like the pacing and seeing the creatures only a little bit here and there, and then onslaught, because those are like super important things when you're doing like a monster movie or a creature movie. Is the reveal, how they choose to do the reveal of the creature, because if you do it too soon, then it's like, oh, well, where's the suspense? We don't care anymore, or we start having opinions about how scary or what the monster looks like and this and that. But yeah, and I'm super intrigued about the black and white. I'm gonna try and see if I can find it to stream or something in black and white. I'm gonna try that first. I don't know. I'm really intrigued.
I'd be interested to know if after you watch it, knowing what the ending is, if that maybe helps sort of cushion the blow, because maybe you'll know I know the ending's gonna be bad. How is the movie itself, the rest of it,
Right.
Or you can just stop the movie about 5 minutes before the ending, which is what I would do if I watched it again.
Sure.
Kind of like
they get in the car, the end.
Well, you get to see a giant wide shot of the creatures too that you don't get to see before that. So if you could skip over it, that would be even better. But
it's true.
Yeah.
All right. So that was Bert's second pick. Now we're on to Josh's second pick. What do you got?
I've got a. You guys hear that? Wait, hold on.
Is it here?
Okay, it stopped. I think we're okay. Okay. Woo. All right. Well, my second pick is Jurassic Park 3, and that was almost a Spinosaurus attack, but we're okay. I think it went the other direction. It didn't see us, or it didn't see me anyway. You guys would have been fine. You would just seen blood and whatever hit the camera.
Not cool.
So yeah, I honestly don't know why people don't like this movie. I am very confused about it. It's only got a 2.5 stars on Letterboxd, 49% on Rotten Tomatoes. IMDb's got it at 5.9 out of 10. Like, people just didn't like it, but I don't know why. It's not Spielberg, so we changed from the first two films over to, I believe it's Joe Johnson, who did like The Rocketeer, October Sky, Hidalgo, Captain America, The First Avenger. So I think we're pretty proficient here on actors or directors, and we got Sam Neill returning, T. Leone, if that's how you say her name. I like it. It's got a good cast. We're just it's Jurassic Park 1, but like part 2 is what I would bill it as. Just like a different, like you like the first one, more of the same. And some people are like, oh, it's just like the first one, or blah blah blah, and that's a detractor. For me, it's not. Some of the critics, Jeff Previer from the Toronto Star, he said, a movie in which little else happens except people get chased, terrified, and generally bullied by prehistoric creatures. But that's the first movie. That's what happens in the first movie. I don't know. I thought this was interesting. For Movie Mom, Nell Minot wrote, "It's not art, but it is fun." Again, going back to what you guys talked about in the first recording of this about art versus like the subjectivity of it, and the technical aspects versus art as far as a movie. Michael Atkinson for Village Voice said drama is minimal and character is non-existent. Another guy said something about the for Globe and Mail. He said the Homo sapiens are not nearly as interesting here as the dinosaurs. So a lot of people were bashing the humans and just being like, oh, it's just all action. Like Derek Ellie from Variety said, an all action helter skelter. Don't forget to buy the computer game ride that makes the 2 previous installments look like models of classic filmmaking. So a bit dumping on the film there. But I don't know. I thought it was really cool. I remember the first time when I was going through the Jurassic Park franchise when I was allowed to watch them. It was just exactly what I said earlier. It was just more of the first movie, which to me was really cool. There's so many elements about this I liked. Like when we were talking about the Netflix. No, I'm sorry. When we we're talking about Star Wars with the Ruins of Mandalorian season 3 teaser. I like anything that where it's like you come upon it and it's like ruins and old and like what happened here. I love those story elements, and that has it here we're on the other island this time instead of Isla Nublar. We're on Isla Sorna, and so we see the other InGen facility and it got overrun. And I don't know, it's just really cool. I don't think the characters are supposed to be like, obviously there's Sam Neill returning as Dr. Alan Grant, and I think him and the kid are really the main parts. I think everyone else, and maybe the mom, everyone else is kind of just there. And I think that's okay. I don't think it needed to be more than that, although people were complaining about it, because they're really the main focus. And I really liked the fact that the kid was there and he had to survive on the island and learning like, oh, T-Rex speed keeps the velociraptors away. Like just learning cool stuff that no one else knew. And I don't know, I think those are really cool story elements. And the Spinosaurus and the ringtone and like all of that stuff is really cool. And it's not like what some of the faults of the newer films is like, oh, we just invented a new dinosaur and it's bigger and it's scarier, but it's less grounded in reality. So it's not as, I don't know. That's just my opinion. I thought the Spinosaurus was pretty dope. So I don't know. What do you guys think about it?
This is probably my second favorite Jurassic movie of
Same.
all 6, maybe third favorite. It's close, but yeah, I mean, it's nowhere near the original. I mean, we know that's a high bar. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Even Spielberg couldn't top himself with the second one. So I like Johnston a lot as a filmmaker. As you mentioned, Rocketeer, Jumanji, Captain America. He's done a lot of great ones that I like a lot. He really does a good job with keeping it tight. It's like 90 minutes. It's the shortest one.
I was surprised at that.
Yeah. So it's nice and fast paced. No wasted time here. I think that's what we're wanting from a Jurassic sequel, right? We just want to get into the action. We want to see some dinos eat people and, have fun. And so that's what this movie does very well. It's really good. I listened to the commentary. I've got the 4K box set. And so the commentary has the effects team. So Stan Winston and all his guys are on the commentary talking about all the animatronics. The guys from ILM are there too. So they're talking about how they blended the two. That's cool. Really incredible. I mean, what they were able to do here. I think the dinosaurs in this look better than any Jurassic movie. First one, the most recent ones, I think they outdo them all here because they are relying on both. They're only using digital when they have to. The rest is these incredibly intricate, detailed animatronics that are just mind blowing to watch. And it was funny. A couple of scenes they were like, okay, that's digital. Oh no, now we're back to regular. Okay, now we're back to and it was funny. Let's listening to them point it all out within the same scene, just cutting back and forth. So the effects team just did a phenomenal job here. The cast is good, small cast, but they're all really solid. Sam Neill, I think, delivers another great performance. Tay Leone's great. William H. Macy, like him a lot in that role. And they each do have, moments to shine. They give each character kind of a moment. I like, when William H. Macy's character at the end, he mentions earlier that he's been swimming and he kind of swims and saves the day. So there's little moments, setups and payoffs that are there that I think work really well. Trevor Morgan, to me, was probably the standout as Eric, the young boy who was in Sixth Sense. He was in The Patriot, The Rookie.
Oh, that's right.
He's been in some good movies. He hasn't done anything in a while, but yeah, he was a good young actor. I really liked his character. Although some of the cast has said it was kind of a bad experience because the script wasn't complete as they shot. And so
I did read that.
They didn't know what they were going to be shooting that
Oh,
day.
wow.
But I thought it turned out really well. I can't really tell because it's just streamlined. It's simple. It's easy, easy to watch. Don Davis did the score, filling in for John Williams, who was doing AI at the time. And, he sparingly uses Williams' theme. I think, they can tend to overuse the Jurassic theme in some of the movies. And here he uses it at really good moments, really big moments that are impactful. And I enjoyed it overall. I think a better title would have been Jurassic Park Extinction. That was the working title. Or Jurassic Park Breakout was another title they had for it. I don't usually like it when they slap a number on it. It's kind of boring to me, but I really, really like it. I've probably watched this one more than any of them, honestly, because this is one of the first DVDs we owned when I was younger. And I watched it over and over and over again. So yeah, pretty big fan.
Yeah, I'll jump in here. I'll quote myself on my Letterboxd review. I was looking back at it. I wrote, if JP1 and 2 spawned a ride at Universal Studios, which they probably did, then JP3 could probably be described as the movie based on the ride, as opposed to the ride based on the movie. So I mean, because it does skip right to the action.
Yeah.
It's just a sort of a taut action movie is really what this is. It's wall to wall. But I mean, there's so many parts of it I like. The plane crash is realistic and exciting. The T-Rex right away starts fighting that bigger dinosaur, and that's really cool. The birdcage scene. I mean, there's just so many parts of it. It's just nonstop fun. It's basically people moving around the island and just trying not to get eaten, and trying to survive to the end. It does sort of lack any big sort of super memorable scene like JP1 and 2. I feel had a couple of those. But the fact is, I get a lot of enjoyment out of this. I'd probably put it right in the middle of the pack with the Jurassic Park movies. Fourth favorite. I like the series a lot. I've got them on on disc as well, and there's 2 versions that are in 3D. I give it a 3 out of 5 stars. I think it's very enjoyable. I've watched it at least 5 times, if not 6 or 7. It's a good pick. I don't know how anybody could watch this and not like it. Frankly, if you're watching all of them all the way through, this is kind of a bit of a change of pace, which I think maybe works better to sort of balance things out. Like this is the film where it sort of really gets sort of, intense and action heavy nonstop, so it kind of works well to break it up a little bit in the series.
I agree. Awesome. Great pick. So we're all kind of in agreement on that one. Interesting. We're moving on now to my number 2, which is Total Recall 2012. So not the original. This is the remake of the Arnold Schwarzenegger, Paul Verhoeven 1990 sci-fi action film Total Recall. Only has 31% on Rotten Tomatoes, 47% audience score. On Letterboxd, the average is 2.5 stars. I give this one 4 stars. I have a ton of fun with it. Some negative reviews, but Brian Eggers with Deep Focus Review said the film spends so much of its time trying to replicate aspects of the original that the filmmakers were distracted from their most clever ideas. Aaron Free with Film Inc. said, dull, repetitive, uninspired, despite a big budget and an attractive cast. Then we have Anna Lee Newitz with io9.com. She said, this is like Born Identity met Blade Runner, then had an ugly tabloid breakup, followed by a nervous breakdown and a tell-all book.
Oh my gosh.
Pretty harsh. Mark Jackson with the Epic Times said, this is very fast, very loud, very dynamic, very cartoony, violent remake, which will make you feel like you've been hit in the face with a brick for 2 hours. So pretty violent review there. People kind of hated on this quite a lot when it was released. $125 million budget. It grossed $198 million. So again, didn't barely break even after marketing costs. Based on Philip K. Dick's short story. This guy's written many famous science fiction short stories. This one was originally titled We Can Remember It For You Wholesale. So quite a mouthful there, odd title, but plays in, and they actually mention that it's in the background of a couple scenes when they're promoting the Recall Center. When you remake anything, it's going to be compared to the original. But, this one really sets itself apart, I think. It really has a totally different visual style, first of all, and a different tone, too. I mean, really, the Schwarzenegger one, it has much more of a kind of lightheartedness to it, even though it's more graphic in its violence. more over the top in certain areas. Whereas the new one, I feel like this one's so much more grounded in reality, has kind of that more serious tone to it. Len Wiseman directed this. He's kind of a underrated director, I feel like. I'm not a huge fan of the Underworld movies, but I think they're well made generally. He's really slick. The way he shoots things, he's very stylish. It's really, to me, interesting and engaging to watch. I just got to watch the director's cut last night. And so there are two cuts of this one. The theatrical version is a lot more straightforward. There's a lot less ambiguity in it. The director's cut has, more character beats, more kind of complexity to the plot a little bit. So I do prefer that the director's cut, as does the director, obviously. They just kind of wanted it to be tighter and more clear for general audiences when they're releasing it in theaters, which is typically a studio note that directors will get. So yeah, lots of visual flair here. I mean, from the opening scene, literal lens flares going on a lot, which a lot of people aren't criticize guys like J.J. Abrams who do that a lot too. I think it can add to a movie a lot.
I think it's cool.
I think it is too. When it's it definitely can be overdone, but here I didn't feel that. Very exciting, very kinetic, fast-paced action, engaging overall. There's a great oneer when Colin Farrell's character Quaid is at the recall center and he wakes up and there's all those guys that come in there, with guns on them, and there's this big one long take of him taking all these guys out. It's really, really well done, really, really fun to watch. There's a great elevator sequence where these elevators are going all different directions, and there's this big fight scene, chase scene there, which was really cool. So just some great action set pieces here that are really, I think, memorable and different from anything I've seen before. Great world building too. This is a movie that obviously it's all way in the future. And so you kind of got to figure out, what's going on. What is this world we're living in? How does it work? Who are these characters? And it just sets it up very well, very straightforward, very easy to follow, I think, as far as that stuff goes. It has that kind of, Blade Runner vibe to it a little bit. And some of the visuals, he brought in more of that, rainy city. It's got, a lot of neon in the background and stuff like that. It's obviously inspired by Blade Runner pretty heavily. That stuff I like because I'm a huge Blade Runner fanatic. Of course, that's another Philip K. Dick story, Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep? I like that element of it. Really cool tech here. I'm always interested in that kind of stuff. Whenever there's a future world, there's this kind of like gun that shoots like a net almost around you that grabs you and then can pull you back or any direction. I thought that was an interesting thing that I hadn't seen before. There's these shrapnel cameras that they can shoot and they can see around corners and stuff.
That was cool.
Yeah, I like that a lot. And then there's the Fall, which is this big elevator that basically goes through the core of the earth. It's kind of this big set piece at the end of the movie that they're kind of battling on. You go 0G when you get to the center of the earth and that kind of thing. So just some really interesting ideas that I thought were executed very well, really well shot. It's got a great cast. Colin Farrell, this guy's one of my favorite actors of all time. He's getting a lot of awards buzz right now for some movies he was in last year. And he's great here as always. Again, a difficult part to play, like a guy who doesn't know who he is, that kind of idea, and does a great job with it. Jessica Biel, I think she's really good in this role as well. She's got some emotional moments that she has to deliver on, and she does that. Kate Beckinsale, a great action actress. She does a lot of her own stunts. I was listening to the director. They were actually married at the time that this movie was made. He really let her let loose with her kind of action skills. And I thought she did a good job there. Bryan Cranston shows up as the villain here. I think he makes a pretty good villain, pretty menacing in some of his scenes. And, just because it has that smarmy attitude that you like your villains to have. Bill Nighy shows up here for a couple scenes, an actor I really like as well, leader of the resistance. John Cho has a small role, and in the director's cut, Ethan Hawke is in the film as well. So good cast, really, really like all of them. I think they play their parts really well. It's well written. I think, it has a lot of things going for it. So I like the whole concept behind it, the nature of memory, what is real? How do we know what is real? That kind of idea is really interesting. Another Harry Gregson Williams score here, which he does really well. He blends a lot of electronic music into the orchestral kind of themes here, which I thought was pretty well done. So, all in all, I don't know if I could say I like it better than the original. I think that's a lot of people get hung up on that. They kind of grow up watching one version and they're kind of more resistant to a remake. But there's a remake that, again, I think it sets itself apart, does stuff different tone wise and visually. And it's just one of those sci-fi movies that I can throw on anytime and have a good time with. So yeah, I'm a big fan. I gave it 4 stars to Total Recall. Josh, you want to give us your thoughts on this one?
Well, first I should probably say I have not seen the original. Actually, I
Very
was going to
different.
ask, is the fall in the original?
No, in the original,
Okay,
he goes to the planet
interesting.
Mars.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
That's
Okay,
very
so
different.
very different. So is it
Right.
like a same concept,
It
and
has
then they ran with it,
yeah,
or
there's similarities with, he's a double agent or whatever. That whole thing is there. But yeah, he's going to Mars, and there's all these like mutants on Mars that are leading this resistance,
wow.
and he needs to give these people air, and all this weird stuff that they do.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty bizarre. It's pretty out there, but I enjoy it.
Okay. I enjoyed it. There was one of those critic reviews when they compared it to Jason Bourne. There was a moment where I thought, oh, this is like Bourne, but like in space.
Right.
But then that thought soon left me because the movie, obviously changes paths and does something unique. I gave it a 3.5 out of 5. I thought the first 2/3 of the movie were good, varying between like good and then great. It has some great spots in it that I really liked. I thought the third act is where the movie just blew me away. Third act
Okay.
was fantastic, which is why I was so surprised when I found out the differences between the director's cut and which is the one I watched, and the theatrical cut, because
Right.
that totally changes it.
Yeah.
For some of it, I was shocked. I didn't care for when they're the whole, I can't remember his friend's name, but when they're like, oh, is this real? Is it on your head? You just shoot her, wake up, and you'll be good. I thought
Right.
that scene dragged a little bit too long, but I really liked the concept of it.
Yeah.
I don't think there was enough before it for really it to carry over to me. Like, oh, is it really real? Like I don't think it, except for like maybe a couple seconds, I didn't buy it, but I love that concept. I've just seen it done better elsewhere a little bit. Some of the CGI I didn't like it was just relegated to the city though. Every time they kind of took a step back and we see like, oh, it's just floating here and there's more back there. And I don't know, I thought that looked a little weird. I don't know what it is. Just something about it didn't seem really real to me, but the rest of the CGI looked great. Like I assume the robots were CGI because there were so many of them.
Well, they built the vast majority of them.
Gosh,
There's only
wow.
a few shots where there are some CGI ones in the background, but yeah, in the commentary, he was like, "Yeah, people think these are all CGI. No, we built all these."
Goodness gracious.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I was gonna say because they looked amazing.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That was the only part of CGI that bothered me, but the rest of it I thought was fine. That third act was just phenomenal, and like you said with the score, I didn't really notice it until the credits started rolling, and I was like, okay, this is good. What is this? And I immediately just like, okay, let me find the score here and listen to that later because that's really cool. Yeah, I don't know if you want to talk any about a bit about the distinctions between the director's cut and the original.
We can. Let's get Bert's thoughts real quick.
Okay, yeah.
What was this movie called? Journey to the Center of the Earth? Is that what so I like it. I like a movie that just tells you right up front, this is sci-fi. Like we're literally gonna like have people like go through the center of the earth and out the other side. So you can leave now if you want. The rest of us are here to watch a sci-fi action movie. So I kind of I appreciate that, because sometimes you find that stuff out halfway through the movie and you're like, what, gosh, this is just such a fun action movie. It's one I've watched it once or twice, but it's been probably 6 years at least since I've seen it. So I wondered, wait, is this going to hold up? Cam, I could basically echo everything you said. The world building is so cool here. I like the tone. There's some great actors here. Interestingly, a lot of British actors that are speaking with an American accent.
Right.
So that's kind of funny.
Or Kate Beckinsale does both.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Oh, that's right. That was cool.
And that's how it was written by Kurt Wimmer, and there's certainly shades of Equilibrium here. He's the one that also wrote Salt, Law Abiding Citizen, The Recruit, Sphere. Have you ever seen Sphere? That's a really good movie.
I haven't.
Okay, it's a horror movie. It's good. You should check that one out. I love all the detail. Like Josh, you didn't really like some of the CG with the city. I thought when the camera kind of pulled back a little bit and you could see that it was like a floating city, I thought that was really impressive, and I kind of wanted him to linger longer there. So to me, that stuff kind of worked. The tech is really cool. You mentioned some of the best of it. There's that digital face changer thing too that I thought was really cool, because to me that's more believable than the mask thing maybe in the Mission Impossible series. The fact that you could use some kind of like digital projection off the face. Anyway, Bryan Cranston was good. If he wasn't Bryan Cranston, that might have been sort of a bad villain, but his acting is so good. Oh, the flying cars. I thought that like the chase scene with those flying cars was really awesome. That kind of made me think of Minority Report, some of the stuff from that movie, but even a step up from that. So it definitely has a Minority Report feel to it, and also an iRobot feel to it. I kind of thought, with all the robots running around. There's that one scene where he's fighting that it's almost like a RoboCop sort of like super version of the robots, right? He's like a little more skilled, and I thought that was really cool. The only things that took me back out of it a little bit was at the beginning, I get confused because Kate Beckinsale and Jessica Biel look kind of the same. So at first I was like, wait, what's going on? And then after a minute, I was like, oh, that's not, the same person. I mean, I know who both those actors are, but for whatever reason, that kind of threw me at first. And then I caught on. Him remembering that he also used to just, with all of his other skills, he's also a concert pianist. That kind of was like, okay, what else can this guy do? That was maybe a bit much, but it had to lead in for the plot. So I kind of, I get that. I wanted to point out though, I really like Harry Gregson Williams. He's had some great scores. I actually did not like the score that much. I felt like he kept going back to the same every time something big happened, he'd have this sort of tone that he would play, and I picked up on it, and then I couldn't not hear it after that. Like when there's a big moment, he would always play this synthesized note. It's hard to explain, and so that I for some reason that kind of annoyed me a little bit. Dudes, this is definitely a 4-star film though. I enjoyed it so much. I need to pick this up on Blu-ray. I doubt it's on 4K, but it's a very enjoyable movie.
Yeah, it's not on 4K yet. I'll be picking it up when it is. But yeah, good. I'm glad you both enjoyed it. Yeah, you mentioned a couple things I can bring up about the original that I thought was interesting, that you thought about how the two women in his life look very similar. In the original, they don't at all. One's a blonde, one's a brunette. And I thought this kind of fixed that, because it makes more sense that they would get someone who looks like the woman he's in love with to create this fake life that he has. So those are things that I liked more about it. The cast, I think the cast has better chemistry in the new one, and we can talk about the differences if you want now, Josh, about the theatrical and the director's cut. It is more ambiguous. I feel like in the director's cut, whether or not it is, he's still in that chair in Recall, or if this is all really occurring. The original movie from 1990 kind of gives it away in a couple points, that it is fake, that everything that happened in the movie wasn't real.
Interesting.
So in the theatrical cut, I think it leans towards, everything that we saw actually happened. So I like the ambiguity. I think it's interesting and different. I like, as we mentioned, Ethan Hawke is in it. That's, one of the major differences is that's what Hauser looked like, and he had plastic surgery, and now he looks like Colin Farrell. So that's obviously a major difference as well. Was there anything specific you wanted to bring up?
Well, just because I was reading, I mean, it was on Wikipedia, so but it said that, like you said, it's not just his memory, but his physical appearance. Does Ethan Hawke not, even at the piano scene, does he not appear in the theatrical?
No, it's Colin Farrell with his head shaved.
Interesting. Yeah. So he still has that same whole explanation.
Oh, you did? Okay.
So that whole explanation is still there. It's just said by Colin Farrell with the shaved head instead of Ethan Hawke.
Exactly.
Really?
Okay, because I thought I thought that part was cut out, and I was like, that's what like really solidified you into the fact. Like they've done it in little parts throughout the movie, but that was what really grounded me into the fact that he is a good guy. Sure. And then at the twist at the end, I was like, whoa, wait a second.
Yeah.
And then also apparently it's not Jessica Biel's character is not Matthias's daughter in the theatrical.
Correct. Yep, that's another big change.
I thought that was interesting.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then like the end, like you said, but I like ambiguous endings. Sometimes like when you have to look up like, oh, ending explained, like sometimes it doesn't work, but I feel like more often than not, at least for me, it really works. Cause I'm like, whoa, what just happened here? I need to like dig into this more and figure out like what's going on. Like I like stuff like that where it ends like that and you're intrigued. It's more memorable.
Yep.
Same. Totally agree. Yeah. So the director's cut is definitely the version to watch if you have a chance to pick it up. Highly recommend it. So let's move on now to Bert's final pick. What you got?
I'm going with Godzilla from 1998. Everybody's favorite.
All right.
So I found a few little quotes. There's not much around still review wise. Okay. Gets a 2.1 on Letterboxd. That's the best rating I could find. So 2-star out of 5. Rick Green from the Globe and Mail in Toronto gave it 0 out of 100 score on IMDb. He said, watching inept American actors and wishing they were badly dubbed into Japanese isn't any fun at all.
Oh my gosh.
The San Francisco Examiner, there was no name on this, 25 out of 100 score, said when a movie is nothing but relentless action, there's little chance for dramatic tension to develop. Roger Ebert, he was still around. He gave it 38 out of 100 score. He said a big, ugly, ungainly device to give teenagers the impression they are seeing a movie. And of course, this movie famously depicts Ebert, Siskel and Ebert, a couple characters, which aren't my favorite part of the film. Godzilla, I saw this in the theater. It was my second favorite movie of that year. It was a great theater experience. I mean, everybody in the theater was laughing at most of the funny stuff that was going on. The dialogue and characters, it is silly at times, but it still does make me laugh. Not all of it. Like Hank Azaria, he's really funny. Even a couple lines by Broderick. And this is meant to be a monster film that doesn't mind some silliness. The creature itself, I think, is magnificent. Right from when he first comes out of the water and then stretches out his giant paw or whatever it is with a sort of ground level perspective, and it's this giant foot coming across like this New York bridge. That was really impressive in 1998. This is 15 years before Pacific Rim, so to see something of that scale was really impressive. When it's like unleashed in New York City, like we hadn't seen stuff like that before. Jurassic Park 1 and 2 were out, but other than that short scene at the end of 2, I mean, there's not really anything involving America, for instance. Certainly not a dinosaur running around a city. The Godzilla babies, obviously they're essentially raptors from Jurassic Park, but it was fun to see them inside, this building and running around a place that I visited, you know what I mean? Madison Square Garden. And again, this was just after Jurassic Park 2. The Jurassic Parks were pretty much straight horror. Not that they didn't have some funny, lines in it, but this is much more of a fun movie, more laid back and less of a horror movie, I guess you could say. It's kind of, I describe it more like a joyride of a Jurassic Park sort of joyride. This is, a decade pre Cloverfield too. So we didn't really have a great, I guess you could say CGI rendered monster like this. I'm frankly astonished that people decry it. I don't really care how it compares to the original movie from way back. I didn't see it. I know it's got to be a person in a costume, which was my fear actually going into Pacific Rim, but I didn't get that feeling at all. But this felt like it was a real giant creature, not a person in a costume. There's some very memorable scenes in it. That's what I've got for Godzilla. I still to this day, I think it's a pretty thrilling and fun movie. It doesn't take itself too seriously, obviously. There's a few dumb lines in it, but I just enjoy the heck out of it.
What was your rating on it?
I'd probably give it at least 4. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Ready for counterpoint? So yeah, I thought this was atrocious. I did not enjoy this one at all. I hadn't seen it since it was probably had to have been a couple years after it came out. So I would have been, 8, 9 when it came out. I had a friend who was big into this movie. They had it on probably VHS, maybe early DVD days, but yeah, I remember watching it at his house and kind of forgetting about it until it came up now on the podcast, and so rewatched it. And yeah, I just you're right, it doesn't take itself too seriously, which is great. If it tried to take itself seriously, it would have failed miserably. So it's got a lot of Independence Day vibes. It's Roland Emmerich, right, coming back to the the well
it's a
of
disaster film, basically.
Disaster guy, right? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so he's made 2 or 3 movies I've liked. The rest I think are just terrible films. 2012, Day After Tomorrow, Moonfall. No. I'm just not a fan of any of that stuff. It's just not my thing. Here's what he's great at. He's great at scale. And that's something this movie does a lot, very well. Especially I really didn't mind the setup. The whole idea of Matthew Broderick's character studying this radiation and the ship capsizing and all this stuff, and you see the big claw marks on the one ship, and just there's some great shots of the footprint that he's standing in, and this kind of stuff that really kind of like builds this tension and does all that really well. The shot of the dock, I mean, that is a great shot.
Mhm.
The fisherman, and then it's coming
Yeah,
up
yeah.
to him and breaking the dock, and all that was great. Once the monster is revealed, I just was like, what is this? This is not Godzilla. This is the redesign on him is so different from the original that don't even call it God. If they had called it Lizard Monster or something, I might be more forgiving. I'm a huge Godzilla fan, so I've watched all of the original Toho films from the Showa era, 1954 all the way through 1975. There's like 15 movies that he was in.
Oh wow.
The original, of course, is the best. I've got the Criterion, collection version, 1954, the black and white. It's just one of my favorite movies. It is so much fun to watch. It's really about something. It's about post-war Japan and the atomic age and the fallout from World War II, all this stuff. There's so much allegory to it and layers and depth. And this is just a silly monster movie, and so it just doesn't have the same impact. It doesn't have, when you're building on a legacy like that, to me, you really have to do, more with it. Yeah, I just couldn't get into the character. I mean, the characters were just kind of annoying, honestly. I didn't really like even Broderick. Broderick, who I like Broderick a lot, they just give him nothing to do. He's just kind of a dull character.
Yeah.
Hank Azaria has some funny moments, like you said. The lady who plays his ex-girlfriend was just terrible, I thought, in every scene.
She's kind of annoying. Yeah.
I was like, could you get her off screen? And they've got a whole side story, and it just didn't work. So it has, some dialogue here that's just, not great. The Ebert and Siskel thing was such a weird thing to throw in. Mayor Ebert and his assistant Gene, who are just kind of bumbling fools the whole movie, and they don't even. Go ahead.
It's partly because Ebert had gone after Roland Emmerich in prior movies big time, right. And so he literally created these characters to lampoon him, but it's not funny. It's just kind of like, why is this in this movie or any movie for that matter?
Right,
so
right, exactly.
I get that.
Yeah, that really took me out of it. I didn't care for that. You mentioned the baby Zillas being kind of velociraptors, just not as cool, not as scary. The CG on them I thought was really bad. I mean, Godzilla was bad enough, but I thought the raptors, and there's a couple of shots of animatronics, but even the animatronics don't look great. They're not puppeted very well. And the CGI is just really bad. I mean, I can forgive bad CGI if I'm into the story, but here I'm not into the story. I don't care about the characters. So it just all fell flat for me. They ended up renaming this redesigned Godzilla in the Toho movies. He actually shows up in one of the later Toho movies they made in Japan, and they just call him Zilla, and he's killed in about 10 seconds in the movie. And so the Japanese are not fans either. So yeah, the army, I mean, they're just bumbling fools too. They cause more damage than Godzilla does. There's shots of literally hundreds of helicopters coming after him in the city that was just so weird to me. I was like, what is it's just going so over the top that again, there was nothing to ground it that made me, kind of engage in the story. Ultimately, we want to root for Godzilla. I feel like that's why you go to a Godzilla movie. You want to see him battle another monster and save the day. And here they kill him. And so it was just an odd choice. Odd choices all around on this one. I don't really know what they were thinking. Again, I think they just wanted a big silly monster movie, but unfortunately, when you're dealing with a beloved character like Godzilla, doing it this way is just not the way to do it. So yeah, I'm at about 1.5 stars on this one.
Wow. I just in rebuttal to that, which isn't much of a rebuttal, but I think if you could have seen it in the theater back in 98, I think you at first would have liked it at least a little more.
Sure. I agree. You're probably right. Josh, what are your thoughts on Godzilla 98?
Well, so I was really excited to talk about this one and Total Recall. I think I'm somewhere in the middle of both you guys. I have it at 3.5 out of 5 stars. I think this movie works really well as a monster film and not really well at all as a Godzilla film. Kind of like what you were saying, Cameron. I have not seen the originals of any of the Godzilla movies, but I've seen the 2014 and on from the Monsterverse. I've seen those. So that's I guess that's how I'm coming at the Godzilla angle in this sense. And kind of like what you were saying, Cameron, I don't think it's totally different tone, like the respect and reverence for Godzilla isn't there. The sentience of Godzilla isn't there. So I think some of those elements are missing. And I didn't care for, not like I thought it was bad. It's just like, it's different. And it's not like, if they had just changed the title, if this wasn't called Godzilla, if it was like a kaiju movie, it would have been great. I think people would have loved it. I don't think anyone would have had a problem with it, except for maybe some of the CGI or some of the other elements, like you guys mentioned. Like I said, I think it works really well as a monster movie or kaiju movie. But something that I did like, it just had a totally different perspective about like what people's response would be in reaction to a monster like this, as opposed to like 2014's Godzilla. Like on those, all those films, it's very like kind of like a stepped back approach, and we're not really looking at governments or we're looking at individual people, but not like a lot of individual people. It's just kind of like a little groups or a monarch. But like in this one, we're like coming at it through the eyes of like the army and like the government, what they're going to do about it. And so I thought it's very American. Take that as you will, a hit or a miss. I don't know. I thought it was fine in that regard, but I thought it was cool. Like all the tanks and everything were like, yeah, this is what, like they would roll out a bunch of tanks. This is like what we would do if we had a big monster come in. This is what would happen. Yeah. I thought the shots from the helicopter, like on the inside from the pilot, that was really cool. I was really engaged there. I thought that was awesome.
By the way, Godzilla tricks the helicopters twice, which I think are two of the best shots. It jumps through a building, which is totally believable. And then the other time it comes up and grabs a helicopter like that. It's awesome. I love it.
Yeah. I thought that was really cool too. I do have to agree with you, Cameron. I didn't care for the design. It was like a T-Rex with a longer neck and bigger hands and cool spines. But like kaiju works perfectly. I liked the human story. Again, like I agree with you, Cameron. I didn't like his ex-girlfriend. I thought she was but like all the other characters I liked. I thought they were fun to watch, especially I can't remember his name. Maybe it was the guy you referenced, but his girlfriend's the camera guy.
Yeah, Hank Azaria.
He was probably like my favorite character in the whole thing. He was great. And I really liked, for some reason, in this moment I forgot it was a Godzilla movie, but at the very beginning when they're like trying to figure out what happened and they're talking to the older Japanese guy who's in the hospital, and they're like, what was it? What did you see? And he says, Gojira, if I mispronounced that, sorry. But like in that moment, I forgot it was a Godzilla movie. So it was like this really cool, like, oh, he's trying to explain what happened to him in the only way he knows how, like through the lens, through his lens, like, oh, this is like Godzilla, basically. And I thought that was really cool. I was really into that. So anything like that, where it was like, again, if they just changed the name and it was, I don't know how you do it, but if it was like a reference, like, oh, this is like Godzilla or whatever, like, I don't know. I thought that was really cool. So I enjoyed the film. I didn't love it. Again, not great Godzilla movie, but great kaiju or monster film. And I liked the element of even though it's different, of all the little Godzillas. Like that was really cool. And Madison Square Garden. And I think that was one element for me that grounded it as well. Like this is a real place and they're everywhere. And I don't know, it was cool. I enjoyed it.
Excellent. I will recommend It Came from Beneath the Sea. This is actually seen in the background of one scene where Hank Azaria's character Animal is trying to get film. You can actually see this movie playing in the background, and it's one of my favorite old 50s monster movies. A lot of fun. All right, that was Bert's last pick. Now we're on to Josh's last pick. What do you got?
I have G.I. Joe, Rise of the Cobra. Now I have no experience with G.I. Joe apart from these two movies and Snake Eyes. So I mean, I do have a G.I. Joe, but I didn't really grow up with any of the fandom or any of the story. So seeing this was my first experience with it, but I really enjoyed it. I don't know what I would have rated it at the time, because when I first saw it was years ago. I maybe seen it 2 or 3 other times until when I just rewatched it. And I know it's too high, but I do have to rate it 5 out of 5. I just enjoy this movie so much. I see your shocked face, Cameron. I don't know. I know it's too high, but it just breaks through the barrier, and I just love this movie. But it's got a 2.2 on Letterboxd. Rotten Tomatoes has it at 33%. Half of the audience enjoyed it. 5.7 on IMDb. A lot of people were comparing it to Transformers: Revenge of the Fallen, which I guess came out the same year, saying it was better than that, while panning it at the same time. So that was not to speak ill of Transformers, I guess, but that's interesting. James Rundle from Sci-Fi Now, he said, G.I. Joe lacks structure, believability, decent characters, competent actors, and the helmsman has clearly abandoned the ship. Save yourself a headache and don't bother with this one. A lot of them spoke to a lack of plot or acting. Tim Nagel from Times, the UK, he said, it is impossible to care for the Joes. So cursory is their characterization, so bland are the actors. It is also uninvolving, and for that, the computer-generated effects are greatly to blame. That's interesting. He was blaming them. A lot of other are blaming the effects as a major culprit on it, but a lot of the other reviews were blaming Channing Tatum and the character who plays his ex-girlfriend Anna. Like they didn't have any chemistry, but they're not supposed to have any chemistry until the end of the movie. So I'm not sure what they were expecting there. Roger Ebert, he said, I should have been carrying a little clicker to keep count, but I believe that director Stephen Sommers has more explosions in his movie than Michael Bay had in Transformers 2 only last month. World records don't last long these days. I thought that was funny. I will point out I do agree with some of the negative stuff here. Some of the CGI, a lot of people were saying like, oh, the CGI was bad. Some of the CGI on the vehicles, pretty much everything that flew, the CGI looked horrible. I think it was just, that's what it was at the time. I think with what they had to do, the fact that they had to have these advanced vehicles that don't exist, that was just where CG was at the time. So maybe, I mean, I can't excuse the helicopters. I guess they just didn't decide to use real helicopters, but the rest of it, and then the ice that falls down at the end, ice doesn't sink, it floats. So that was a little, what are we doing here? I don't know. I really enjoyed the movie. I don't think it's got horrible acting. I think it's fine. I don't think this is an action movie. Again, going back to what people are expecting out of a film and what the film is, holding itself up as. This is just a fun, crazy, over the top action film with tons of explosions, and that's what it delivers on every level. It's got a really good cast, like a really large cast. I was surprised at how, like watching again this time, how many well-known actors are in this movie. Like obviously Channing Tatum, we got Ray Park as Snake Eyes, which he's really cool. I can't pronounce his name, but he's Mr. Echo in Lost. He plays Heavy here. Christopher Eccleston, who I really like from Doctor Who or Thor: The Dark World. He's McCullen. And then we got Dennis Quaid, obviously. Brendan Fraser makes a uncredited cameo. I was like, oh, maybe we're going to get to see more of him. No, darn it. Jonathan Pryce is the president, and then Joseph Gordon-Levitt as the Doctor or Rex or Cobra. But yeah, I really enjoyed this movie. I thought it, like every area that it tried to get, it nailed. Like the action, everything with Storm Shadow and Snake Eyes was super cool and engaging. All the flashbacks, I thought those were really well placed. I didn't feel like kind of like what we said about Jurassic Park 3. Like this is a really tight film. There's not a lot of times where they're just like, okay, let's just pause here for a minute and talk or whatever. Like it's really engaging and tight. And for all that they managed to fit in the movie, I thought they did a really good job. Like even like I said with some of the flashbacks, there's probably more flashbacks in this movie than any other movie I can think of. You got Snake Eyes' flashbacks, and Storm Shadow, and Channing Tatum as Duke, his flashbacks as well. So there's like a very large amount of flashbacks here, but I thought they sprinkled out and wrote it in really well. The action, the pacing keeps up. I thought that was good. For me, when I first saw this, the moment when Joseph Gordon-Levitt reveals as the Doctor that he is Anna's brother, he's Rex, like that, I was flabbergasted. I was blown away when I first saw this. I was like, what? And obviously it's hard to have that reaction again if you already know what it is. But I still think the reveals we get along the way of each of these things was still really cool, and at least good writing in my opinion. I like when stories, they drop little bits, little crumbs. And then like something big at the end. And maybe you, like when you see the big thing at the end, maybe you don't realize all the crumbs are there until it happens, or until you go back and watch it. I really like movies that do that. And I thought this did it at several points. It did it with when Rex reveals how he survived. It was like, oh, we were in the bunker, but it was a prototype bunker. And they mentioned, I think McCullen mentions building bunkers earlier. The main point when you see this is with, I don't know his name, but it's from The Mummy, the bad guy who turns into the president. He whistles throughout the film, and you're just like, okay, he whistles, whatever. He whistles the same tune. But then at the end, boom, there it is. And oh, it's him. And so little things like that that lead to a reveal at the end are really cool. I don't know. I really enjoyed the film. It's a fun ride, full of explosions and action. Even the beginning, where we're showing like the old knights in Destro, whatever, or however long ago that was, with the McCullen clan. I was like, wait, am I watching a G.I. Joe movie? What's going on right now? And then they bring that back. And so I thought that was really cool. But yeah, what'd you guys think about it?
Well, it's funny. During this film, I actually had to call the police because this film was trying to murder my soul.
Oh my gosh.
Don't
like,
take
where's
any of
this
this
going? You have
personally.
to call the police.
Don't take any of this personally, Josh.
That's fine. I love it too much. You can't hurt it.
Good. I want that to be the case. I don't want to make you love it less.
Right.
I found it interesting in this film that I've seen. There was another movie we talked about, that Christian Bale movie. The characters would talk so rapidly, and then when one person stopped talking, the next person would start talking, and so on and so on. Like there was, like you mentioned, there's no real space in between, and I think that was one of the problems with the dialogue. Was it was just rapid fire dialogue. Without really even pause, like the actors weren't even really reacting to what the other actors were saying. That was pretty interesting. But the big problem here is there's pretty much wall to wall action, and it just didn't work for me. It's really the editing, the way it was edited. I kid you not, I'm watching the movie and it's maybe 45 minutes in. It occurred to me, oh, this action is like really kind of choppy and like feels like it's like so tightly cut. I'm like, I wonder if I have the speed turned up, because you can turn up the speed on Netflix, which is where I watched it. So I literally checked that, and actually, no, it was fine. And I actually checked it 2 more times after that. I thought, did I miss? Like, it's got to be something with the setting. But no, I mean, that's really like, that's how chopped up it seemed. I don't know why I got that impression, but it just felt like all the action scenes were like these ultra quick cuts.
Mhm.
And I almost wondered if the film itself was sped up by the director. Like I almost thought, is this maybe like a 3-hour movie that they thought, we got to like, we want to get through all this. Let's crank everything up by like 0.5%. So it'll look a little speedier and we'll jam more in. Like, I don't know what exactly, maybe it was just my perception of that. But it just, none of the action really felt like it had any grounding to it. And it just lost me. And so unfortunately, after about, 45 minutes or so, I just pretty much couldn't wait till it was over. So I unfortunately, I just just inexplicable, too many inexplicable things happen, too many super powerful things happen by people that weren't otherwise known as superheroes. There were a lot of one-liners. I didn't really find any of them funny. And there's
Even
a lot of great
Ripcord?
actors. What's that?
Even Duke's friend Ripcord. I don't know, maybe it's
I'm
because
not
that
saying
captions
there couldn't
on,
have been
but-
like an outlier, but I think there were a lot of attempts at one-liners. And most of them, I just was like, that just wasn't funny to me. I don't know why. Maybe it was just the mood I was in. So there was no regard for human life. I guess that's sort of like
it's very true.
to me, what sets aside a good action movie too is if there's actually some acknowledgement of the carnage. Not that you can't enjoy something that ignores that, but I'm just saying this seemed to completely ignore that. It was really kind of like what I would picture sort of like an action cartoon come to life. Like, it was not a cartoon. I mean, it was real people and fairly realistic looking situations. None of it really landed with me, unfortunately. The director, Steven Sommers, I also hated his Van Helsing movie. We're a long way from The Mummy here, which he did. Dude, I feel bad, but I mean, I'm probably like at half star because I couldn't wait for it to be over. I just feel like it might be mostly the editing. I don't know exactly.
What you said both about the editing and about the like cartoon come to life, like several critics did mention that as well. They thought like it was like, oh, what, they couldn't keep track of some of the action, and then they like some of them literally verbatim said cartoon come to life, like you just said. So
that was what I
You're
was
not
picking
alone.
up on. Yeah, and I'm not making it up. Like, literally 3 times I checked the speed because I thought there's no way this is one-to-one speed. That's just the impression I was getting from it.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Interesting. 2 very different takes. My take is kind of down the middle. I've got this at 2.5 stars. So a lot to like, a lot to not like, I think. I do own the film. I did see it in theaters. I grew up on the G.I. Joe 1987 film, which was animated. So it was a cartoon. So this is a cartoon come to life in many ways. So yeah, I've watched that movie a number of times. That's where I was introduced to all these characters. And so I was pretty stoked when I was hearing this was coming to, a live action, big budget, big screen outing for the Joes. So pretty big fan of the franchise. And I think this is, again, it has a lot of cool stuff, a lot of good stuff I really like, and a lot of stuff that doesn't work. So Stephen Sommers, we mentioned him. He's a director I really like. I like his Huck Finn movie. Both of his Mummy movies I've got on 4K, which I think are excellent. I mean, these are some, I watch these all the time. Van Helsing wasn't great, but I did like Odd Thomas with Anton Yelchin. He did that one as well. That's a lot of fun. I watched it with the commentary for the first time this week. Sommers is on there with the producer of the film as well. And they're really honest about it, which was really refreshing. They point out the bad CGI. They point out stuff that they don't like, certain shots, certain things that weren't working, that they, were trying to figure out during production. This was made during the writer's strike back in 2007, 2008. So this film actually has had no writer on it initially. There was a script that was written, and then the writers went on strike. Once they started shooting, they got a guy named Stuart Beattie to start writing on set. So this movie was literally being written as it was shot. He also wrote Collateral, which is a really good Michael Mann film that I like. So yeah, I mean, it was a really honest commentary that I really enjoyed because there are CG moments that just don't work. Shots just. They were also up against a time restraint because the release date was already set and the studio would not move it. So a lot of issues going on behind the scenes here that I think hurt the movie a lot. But, all in all, I still think it's really entertaining for the most part. James Cameron, the director was telling a story about his neighbor, James Cameron, I guess lived next door to each other. And, there were all these internet rumors about the movie when it was about to come out, that it was testing terribly and that, they were trying to, re-edit the film, and the director had been fired. It wasn't allowed to edit the movie anymore. And James Cameron was invited over to Stephen Sommers' house to see a test screening. And he said he actually enjoyed the movie. And he even called a news outlet to tell them that, no, look, I like the movie. Stephen Sommers is still directing it. He's doing a great job. And he kind of helped him out, which is kind of cool.
That's
to hear
cool.
that, director buddy helping his friend out, which is pretty neat. So Josh, you're in good company. Jim Cameron and you both agree that the film is good. There was some behind the scenes stuff I looked up in the news this week. I sent it to you guys. Channing Tatum recently said that he turned the script down 7 times, but the studio had him in a 3-film contract. So he had to act in the movie, or he wouldn't, be able to do his other movie he wanted to do after this.
He doesn't look entirely thrilled to be there part of the time. I mean,
yeah, it's true.
Some of his
there are a couple
lines.
moments where he seems checked out. So I found out that Chris Hemsworth and Chris Evans were both up for the role of Duke, which went to Tatum at the time, who was, kind of up and coming actor. He obviously, doesn't enjoy the film. Christopher Eccleston has said the same, that he wasn't a big fan of it. He said the same thing about Thor: The Dark World. He's, I guess, not a fan of these big budget movies that he does. So, yeah. But look, it has some cool stylish moments. It's got a fun light tone. It's not taking itself too seriously, I don't think. They call back to the toy with Ripcord's line. He says to Heavy Duty, lifelike hair, kung fu grip. That was a callback to the toy commercial for the G.I. Joes. I like that Duke and Ripcord are kind of our eyes into this new world of Joes that we're kind of being introduced to. I think that's a smart idea. The characters have very simple story arc, very sad and tragic backstories, though, that I find myself kind of getting emotionally invested in. I think overall the film doesn't capture the charm that they were going for with, movies like Sommers did, The Mummy. Those characters I so care about and relate to and enjoy. They just weren't quite able to get it there. And I think it goes back to the script. That's probably the reason why. But supposedly the cast got along really well. Again, this is, going back to what I talked about Godzilla. I think the bad CGI is forgivable if I'm really investing in the story. And this one, I was definitely more invested. Not as much as I wanted to be, though. So that's why I think it doesn't quite make it to a full like 3 or 3.5 star, rating for me. I think Joseph Gordon-Levitt is the standout, as he usually is. Great as this role. He actually voices the character. A lot of people don't think he does the
Oh,
voice.
wow.
He is doing that Cobra voice, that really raspy, weird sounding voice that he has, and he elevates this movie, I think, in a lot of ways. So yeah, I think the cast is a little bit of a mixed bag. Tatum's a little checked out. He doesn't have quite the charisma he has in some of his other movies. Marlon Wayans, I think, is funny, but he's a little too silly at certain times. Ray Park is great as Snake Eyes, doesn't say a word. He just does his action stuff, and that's the character right out of the original series. So again, enjoyed a lot of it. Some of it is a little silly, kind of bland and generic, and some of the action, it's a little repetitive. I think those accelerator suits they have was kind of a cool idea, but the execution wasn't fully there. When they're not in that, they're kind of just in their like army fatigues or these generic black leather outfits that we see in all these movies, and it's just kind of, in the comics and in the show, they have all these colorful, they're all very distinct in their style. And so that was kind of a negative for me. I don't know why Snake Eye's suit has lips either. That was a little bit of a weird choice. That he's got a mask that has big lips on it. I don't know why he did that, but anyways,
is it a mask?
Yeah,
like
it is
up until watching it this time, I just assumed that was his face, like in real, like his face that they just painted, and he had the visor over. But this time, it kind of seemed a little proportionally like a little larger, whatever. I was like, oh, I wonder if that's like a mask or something on it.
Yeah, it's a mask, which is a weird choice. I think they did the suit a lot better in the sequel, which I actually prefer the sequel, Retaliation. I think it has that grounded nature that it needed, even though the cast still isn't like phenomenal or anything. Certain action sequences in that really stand out better. Overall, again, it's a fun movie. I didn't hate watching it. I've watched it a couple times actually, and have enjoyed it both times, but it's not a go-to, not a favorite by any means. So yeah, those are my thoughts on G.I. Joe, The Rise of Cobra.
Nice. My
final film, the last pick here, is The Lone Ranger from 2013. So this film has a 31% rating on Rotten Tomatoes, 51% audience score. Letterboxd rating is 2.6 average. My rating is 4.5 stars. One of the most entertaining movies I've seen. I've seen it numerous times. Big fan. Huge budget on this movie. This is a $250 million film, and it only grossed $260 million. So it lost a lot of money for Disney. Here's some reviews that I thought were funny, kind of clever. Keith Garlington, Keith at the Movies. It loses itself in its overbearing insanity and bloated, uneven plot. It never feels like a Western, and it never knows when to end. That was his thought on it. Brent McKnight, with The Last Thing I See, said the story is convoluted and by turns attempts to be a tentpole action film, a buddy comedy, a family melodrama, a revisionist Western, and a tale of heroism, and it falls flat in every instance. So he wasn't a fan of any aspect of this. Ben Nicholson with Cineview said the overlong plot lacks smarts. The action lacks thrills. The characters lack the necessary depth or spark. And finally, Stephen March with Esquire magazine said it is a film that manages to be bad in many ordinary ways, but also to be bad in a rather extraordinary way. Not a lot of fanfare for this one. First of all, it's Gore Verbinski directing. And he's coming off of his, of course, Pirates of the Caribbean trilogy he did for Disney, right? So he did all three of those, huge hits, made billions of dollars for the studio. And, he comes up with this Lone Ranger take that he has, that he wants to explore, that they were actually developing for many, many years before this. The character had kind of fallen out of the zeitgeist. He was hugely popular in the 30s, all the way through the 1950s. He had his own TV show. But they wanted to kind of revitalize it. Jerry Bruckheimer was on board, ready to go. Big name producer, big budget. It's so rare. One of the reasons I like this is because it's so rare that nowadays we get a big budget Western. The rest Westerns is kind of, gone the way of the dodo almost. It's kind of a forgotten genre in many, many respects. So to get a big budget huge action spectacle Western for a guy like me who's big into the genre, that's just right up my alley. So I was there opening day, really enjoyed it in the theater, went with my grandfather and my brother, and we all had a great time. So look, it's a big movie. There's a lot going on here. As one of the critics mentioned, it's a lot of characters, ensemble cast. There's backstory we got to fill in. There's this character journey we go on. There's these villains we got to battle. This whole conspiracy, this whole big plot that's going on under the surface. So there's a lot going on here. I like that in a movie. I like, especially with a big budget and a big movie like this. I like that there's stuff to explore. There's stuff you missed the first time you catch the second time. How characters are connected and things like that. So I enjoy that kind of storytelling. It's a kind of hero's journey story. John Reed is not an action hero at the start of this. He's a lawyer, who's just kind of seeking justice. His brother's kind of the action hero. You're like, oh, he's going to be the Lone Ranger. And then, it kind of takes a turn. And so I like that whole element of it. Amazing stunts. The stunt work in this is, I think, second to none. I mean, really, when it comes to these big budget action movies, there's these huge set pieces, these, chase sequences and shootouts and all kinds of stuff. I mean, the finale of this movie is a movie unto itself. This whole train chase and these incredible, flipping around the train and shooting out windows and, just crazy stuff they're doing here. So it just visually has this great style that I think is really dynamic. Some really interesting, cinematography here. The great shots of Monument Valley, which I'm a big fan of as well. The thing that I think, obviously a lot of people had trouble with was balancing the comedy with the drama, right? Because there's some pretty dark stuff going on here. And then there's a lot of humor and kind of just silliness too. There's that balance, I think, is where it kind of loses people. I find that it's balanced pretty well between the two. And I think Verbinski did that on his pirate movies, right? Those are filled with humor. Yet there's some kind of scary stuff going on. There's drama, there's a plot. And so, it's to me much of the same. To me, this feels very much like one of those pirate movies. It's not spoofing the genre, yet it's having a lot of fun with it. It's kind of poking fun at it sometimes as well. So I think really what helps it is Verbinski, his direction, the tone he establishes in the cast. Say what you want about these guys. I know they're a little controversial right now, but Johnny Depp and Armie Hammer, I really think play these roles very well. I really buy into both these characters. I like both of these characters. I'm rooting for them throughout the story. And so, I enjoy both these performances. As bizarre as Johnny Depp's performance can get at times, I think it really works for the character and for the story. The kind of spiritual aspects that it has to it, some kind of weird stuff going on there. But Armie Hammer is I think a good leading man. I like him as this character as well. So all in all, I enjoy it. I enjoy all the action spectacle. The standout thing about it might be the score by the great Hans Zimmer again, bringing all this interesting musicality to it, which is a lot of fun to listen to. So I'm a big fan of The Lone Ranger, and I'm very curious on what your takes are. Bert, you want to give me yours first?
I'm not really big into Westerns.
Right.
I avoided this movie because I had not heard anything good about it. And I was impressed.
Okay.
With this movie. Yes. Yeah. This is a gorgeous looking film.
Yeah.
Is it in 4K? Is there a 4K of this available?
Not yet. No.
Oh, yeah. Because some of the scenery was just amazing. The tracking shots just looked amazing during the daylight scenes.
Right.
I mean, and then there's some fantastic action scenes here. Depp, he curates another funny, unique character, and that's really what made it work for me. Armie Hammer, I don't dislike him, but I feel like this is another one that probably dropped a few actors passed on it, I think, and maybe it dropped to him. I'm guessing. But I thought he was okay. I think that's, it could have been better. I do like Bill Fichtner. He's in this. It's a really different role for him. He was really good. But what made this film really work is the comedy, because in the editing with the comedy, like just some really in your face kind of unexpected things would happen. or sometimes it was just a funny line by Johnny Depp or something funny he would do. But there were numerous times in the film where I laughed out loud. I think the film is probably a half hour too long, but I really can't wait to see it again. I mean, honestly, it was one of those that just really surprised me. It looked great. It was when it was funny, I got the most enjoyment out of it. And I'm probably 3 to 3.5 stars on it. It was very good.
Awesome. Great. Glad you enjoyed it. Yeah. First time Lone Ranger watcher there. So that's great. Josh, what are your thoughts on it?
I have it at 3 out of 5. I don't enjoy it nearly as much as both of you did. I like Westerns. I like Gore Verbinski and pirates and all that. I don't know. For me, it kind of just all boils down to Armie Hammer. Nothing against him personally or, whatever. I thought he was fine in the role. I just think it was the character.
Yeah.
And for me, and that maybe I haven't seen any of the Lone Ranger stuff aside from this, but from hearing from others who have, and I guess that's kind of influenced my view of it as well. He was kind of a weak character. And I get that this is like the origin story. So certain things, like he's not the character that the people all know or whatever, or, it's the same thing with Russell Crowe's Robin Hood. That was great, but can he be Robin Hood now? And it's like, okay, well, in the sequel, then he would be. So I think the same thing kind of happened here, at least for me, where it was like, this is good. And there's all this fun action and really enjoy it in that aspect. But for me, just the taste that I'm left with is tainted by Armie Hammer's just weak character as the Lone Ranger. Like he's not the like hero that I was hoping or expecting or what have you. But I really like Johnny Depp as Tonto. Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, if I could cut in on that subject, I mean, when I was a child, I saw some reruns of the series, and I don't remember a lot of it, but I do feel like it was much more the Lone Ranger was this hero, and then Tonto was like the sidekick, and it feels like it's kind of flipped because I mean, I feel like this is a Johnny Depp film, not an Armie Hammer film. Is that kind of what you thought too, Cam? I mean,
that was their whole thing going into this. That was their kind of big idea, was like, hey, let's do Lone Ranger, but let's do an origin where Tonto, instead of him just being like the sidekick that helps him out, he's the guy that actually turns him into this hero. And so, I could totally see why people think that way, that grew up with this, that are like, what is this is not Lone Ranger.
That might have I get that. I mean, not for me, but
right, but other people with it. Right, but I think for me, by the end of the movie, like Josh is saying, he is that hero. He becomes that guy.
Sure.
And so it's just it's a long journey getting there, right? It is a long movie. So anyways,
otherwise, I liked the movie. I liked Helena Bonham Carter's characters, like gun leg. I thought that was really cool. There's so many like things like that are just like they can be taken kind of wacky or whatever, but just they're pulled off really well, so they're not wacky. And I don't know, they're just really enjoyable moments. The villain I actually didn't care for either. He was good. The eating the heart scene it was too much.
They don't show it, do they? I mean, I don't think they actually showed it.
I think
no, but you know what he's doing.
Reflection,
like he's like has up here, he's eating, and he's got blood on his face after. Like I don't know. It was like this is a kids movie. Like, what are we doing here? This is like. I don't know. I thought it was too far.
Yeah, I wouldn't show this to my kids. Yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah, that was some of the most shocking villain stuff I've seen, just in general, let alone in like a kid, built as like a fun kids movie.
You're right. There definitely seemed like it was awfully violent compared to what I expected. Not that I'm against that per se, but I thought a lot of the deaths were a lot more visible and things like that. That did surprise me a little bit. Yeah.
Verbinski's got a thing for hearts. He's got the whole Davy Jones heart and the pirates thing and all that. Perfect. So maybe it's his hang up.
Maybe
his calling card.
Yeah, it's still a fun action movie, fun action Western movie. Yeah, I don't know. I just don't care for it as much as either of you did.
Gotcha. Awesome. Always cool to get these different perspectives. That's kind of what this whole thing is about. So hope you guys enjoyed our podcast on Defending Bad Movies Part 2. Part 3, I'm sure, will be coming down the road. Let us know your movies that other people maybe don't enjoy as much as you do in the comments below. We'll be happy to have a conversation with you. Make sure you hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell to get notifications of all our videos. Thanks, Bert, and thanks, Josh. First timer here on the podcast. Really enjoyed having you.
Glad to be here.
Yeah, great having you. Yep.
All right, everybody. Thanks again for joining us, and we'll see you next time right here on The Real World.